Okay, there we go. Apologies for that. Hope everyone is very well. Sorry, I had misplaced my documentation for the live stream, and I had thought it was actually a little bit later. But let's jump into it. So, well, what a night! So we received information about the exit poll not working out too well for the SNP, but it's been actually updated to. It should be updated to be a bit more correct, and we'll probably hear for that later on. The Reform UK party, of course, potentially on 13 seats, but that's been downgraded to about 9, it seems. It could also be downgraded later on. What am I doing? Hello, everyone, and welcome to this special edition of the live stream where I'm going to try and stay awake as long as possible and cover as much of the stuff coming in as it comes in. Nothing really prepared, just winging it. Okay, so I hope everyone is excited about 410 seats for the Labour Party. This is a massive result for Labour, and I think Keir Starmer would be pretty happy with that. Let me see. We have a super chat from Brad. Thank you so much, Brad. Doris revealed Johnson texted her while on Channel 4. Intel says it read, "Let's do buy the pins around the back in 5 minutes." I actually have a video. So before I came on here, I did a couple of videos for tomorrow morning, and I did the one with where she has a bit of a meltdown over. Thanks so much, Brad. She has a meltdown over comments Alistair Campbell made about Boris Johnson. I'm going to put on the audio here from the live feed from Sky News in a moment, but just read. Apologies, I'm late, so hopefully everyone is jumping on now. There's so many people doing live streams, so I'm competing with a lot of people. Wonder what policy will start getting passed quickly. That's an interesting question. I think what they'll focus on is probably trying to grow the economy. I think that's what they're going to really go for. And that's what they said is key to funding public services. Now, I've said before, I don't know how they're going to grow the economy if, you don't bring back freedom of movement, you don't pump huge amounts of money into the economy. Because the alternative, of course, is austerity, and you don't want that. So austerity, of course, takes money out of the economy. So if the Labour Party, Labour government go down the road of austerity, they're not going to get growth. They're not going to be able to fund public services, and then that's going to leave the door open for Farage and others. And this is my biggest concern, is because if Labour are not fixing things in a way that people can see, they have to be able to show that they've achieved something within the next 2 years. If they haven't done that, I think what you're going to see is Starmer removed and replaced by somebody else. And then you're going to see the rise of the likes of Reform UK, who are going to say, oh, you should be doing something about immigration, or you should be doing something about net zero, or you should be doing X, Y, and Z. And if Labour not seen to be achieving, then they're going to lose support. You're going to see by-elections. You're going to see calls for a general election. Of course, they can hold on for 5 years. But if it seems that they're losing support, then it will facilitate the rise of the right, unfortunately. Viewers from the Two Davies will be over soon. That's great. Take 2 bottles of Dumb Boy and on a gallon bucket of custard. A viewer from the Netherlands, great to see you. Let me put on the audio here so we'll hear as news comes in.
3.6% of the vote. In 1997, Blair got 43.2% of the vote. In 1979, Thatcher got 42.
I just see Mark says, mixed emotions, well done Labour, worried about reform. Yeah, I am concerned about reform because, I predicted they'd maybe get 3 seats. I thought it'd be, Farage, maybe Lee Anderson, and what's the other guy? Richard Tice. I thought that would be the result. Now, of course, it's still early days. The exit poll is off somewhat. And it seems that the 13 seats that they're predicted may be downgraded to 9. It could be downgraded even further. Let's hope that's the case. I think it'd be wonderful if Farage didn't win the seat, and maybe if they did actually win a seat, it'd be somebody else like Lee Anderson. It'd be embarrassing for Nigel Farage. But can Labour attack reform? Not really, because, see, this is the thing about reform. This is the thing about the opposition, is they're in opposition, so they are not tested. So we're going to see Labour tested. Any word on the north of Ireland? I think Sinn Féin may take East Derry. I heard something about Sinn Féin taking East Derry. So I don't think we're going to see a lot of change in the north of Ireland. It is quite static, I think. But it'd be interesting to see what happens in Lagan Valley. Lagan Valley is Jeffrey Donaldson's old seat. And, I'd love to see the Alliance Party win that seat.
Is he going to keep his seat?
Who?
Doesn't look like it, Kay. All the signs are that Jeremy Hunt, the son of an admiral, is going to sail off into the political sunset tonight with possibly a heavy defeat by the Liberal Democrats, although he insisted during the campaign he thought it'd be 1,000 to 1,500.
I'll refresh this if my stream is behind.
Expect a Chancellor of the Exchequer to be in London, taking part in TV debates, interviews and so on. He has spent the last 6 weeks pounding the streets of this leafy constituency in the Surrey Hills in the hope...
So Jeremy Hunt could lose his seat. He'd be the first Chancellor, I think, of all time to lose his seat. So that'd be interesting to see if it does actually transpire.
Left in the Tory party in Parliament, one of the grown-ups, if you like, experienced politician. If, on the other hand, it's the end for Jeremy Hunt, he can look back on a 19-year career in Parliament in which he's held 4 cabinet posts, including 2 of the so-called great offices of state, Foreign Secretary and Chancellor of the Exchequer. All the signs are, looking at what's happening around the country, Mr. Hunt is probably going to lose here.
Yeah, just also seeing, while I've got you, before we move on to Amanda, a Liberal Democrat source saying school's out for summer for Gillian Keegan. We're confident of clinching a win in Chichester.
Yes, so Gillian Keegan is likely to lose her seat as well. Remember, she's the one who was saying, what would she say? They had no fucking respect for me or something like that when she was criticising, I believe it was the civil servants or the media or someone. Look at all the great things I did. I read earlier that it's quite close in Starmer's seat between him and the independent Mr. Feinstein. Anyone know if that's true? I don't see that happening. I think Starmer will win his seat quite comfortably. I don't think Feinstein is all that famous in the constituency. He's a human rights campaigner, but and I saw a bit of an interview with him today, I think it was, with Owen Jones. So he's an interesting individual, and I think he would make a good MP, but I don't see him winning, and I don't think even he believes he can win that seat.
Told us, Daddy might not be Chancellor of the Exchequer, he might not be an MP. He knows he's in a tough battle here, and if Mr. Hunt does lose, it won't be a great shock. Yes, I think Gillian Keegan going is a shock. I mean, this area also...
Can Starmer last 5 years? No, I don't see Starmer lasting 5 years because, look, it's going to be really difficult. Boris Johnson didn't last 5 years, and he won a majority where he was really popular. Starmer is not popular. Starmer is winning mainly because people are not happy with the Conservatives. I keep saying this. It's a referendum on the incumbent. Are people happy with the Conservatives? No, they're not. Get them out and vote for the opposite being Labour, of course. So I don't see Starmer lasting very long. He will be, I think he'll be replaced sometime soon. It could happen in months, it could happen in years, but he will eventually be replaced by somebody else. Because what will happen is he'll start to get blamed. His popularity will drag the party down. And when you can lose a by-election, okay, lose another by-election, that's not good. Lose a number of by-elections, then they'll say, okay, Starmer has to go, and he'll be replaced probably with Angela Rayner.
Johnson elected, and indeed he's been tipped as a possible future Conservative leader himself. Certainly even just a few weeks ago there was lots of talks about him as one of the likely contenders, but certainly now, given the results of the exit poll in particular, that doesn't seem that likely.
So Grant Shapps, the problem for Grant Shapps was that people turned up and they voted for Michael Green. And they split the vote.
Really narrow in the context of the pretty dire polling we've seen. So he's only got a majority of just under 11,000. Labour need just a swing of just over 10% to win here. Indeed, it seems very likely that that's what they managed to do. In fact, this is a seat, though, that they did hold back under the Blair years.
OK, for now, thank you. Ed is here. Ed, is that your food, love? Yes. What have you got?
So I heard you've got a poke bowl coming. They asked me what I wanted. There's some pizza on offer, but this is, I think, some chicken goujons. So there you go. Can I just say 5 minutes until it's halfway through? We've been on here 5 hours.
And
5 hours
the decoration coming up momentarily.
It's flown by.
Lee, coming soon.
Yeah, coming up in just a second.
Great.
Next few moments. Ed,
it really does.
Ed, we're hearing, and you'll want to know this, Trevor, Basildon and Billericay, it's been confirmed that is a recount. Now, the reason that we're interested in Basildon and Billericay is because it's Richard Holden's seat, and it was literally bolted on. He was guaranteed.
Yeah, so, excuse me. It was interesting with Richard Holden. Richard Holden, of course, being the Tory party chairman, I think it is. He was landed in that seat, parachuted into that seat because it was a safe one, and it looks like he might lose it. The original candidate was not too happy about that. So if you're looking at the results, you can see the Conservatives have won so far, and that's Mark Francois, the Spartan, the Brexiteer. He held on to his seat. That's a very safe seat. There was no real risk of him losing that.
Starting to get some stories telling us a bit of the other dynamics, the geographical dynamics, the demographic dynamics around the country. Let me focus, first of all, on Nuneaton. OK, I want to look at Nuneaton because this is kind of interesting here. Again, what we're doing is we're comparing exit poll results with the eventual results. We're not going to do this all night, but it's just giving you a sense of whether that number that we've been focusing on quite so much does look good. And it looks pretty good here in Nuneaton, because look at that, 36 in the exit poll. The eventual result's 36.9. OK, so that's pretty close. Conservatives, 27. The eventual result, 28.5, so slightly stronger. And then Reform, more or less the same. So that's a result that looks pretty similar to the exit poll. So again, if you're looking at the exit poll, wondering whether it looks kind of reliable, this result in Nuneaton, of course, a former kind of bellwether constituency. Remember that? Ed Miliband really wanted to win it, but didn't get to win it. And that was really significant back in 2015. But have a look at this. OK, so Nuneaton, what's interesting here about that Labour vote share, is it as high as you might have expected, given that they are winning there? And that's the story here that we're starting to see evolving. Labour winning seats without necessarily having enormous majority shares of the vote. And why is that happening? It's partly because Reform is eating into that Conservative vote. Just look.
And see, this is a big problem for Labour going forward, because if they're not increasing their percentage of the vote and they're relying on the Conservatives falling apart or Reform eating into the Conservatives' vote, this isn't going to bode well for the future, because they need to increase their percentage of the vote. OK, increasing their share of the vote a touch. Conservatives down a lot. But look, again, Reform sandwiched in the middle, eating into the Conservative vote. And this is interesting as well. Look at the Labour Party down in fourth place, actually seeing the share of the vote falling. OK, so is this some evidence of tactical voting here in Harrogate that gets the Lib Dems in there? So that's kind of. So about the SNP, so some people have been asking about the SNP. Sir John Curtis has said, look, we've only done a little bit of polling in Scotland, and that polling has come back pretty bad for the SNP. But he said to take it with a pinch of salt, because you're going to have to wait until some more results come in, and especially results for Scotland come in, to have a better understanding. So while at the moment it looks terrible for the SNP, that would probably change.
But have a look at this for the Conservatives. And most of these are northeast constituencies. So again, it's telling you one aspect here, one geographical focus. But look at how many of these bars are above the line. The Conservatives doing a touch better, whether it's in Sunderland, whether it's in Blyth, in Gateshead as well, doing a touch better in all of these constituencies around the northeast than the exit poll was suggesting. So does that suggest that the exit poll is actually not necessarily just...
See, this is worrying, because if the Conservatives are doing better than expected in the north, then they should do better than expected in the south, and that's where their strong play. That's their strongest seats are in the south. So it means that probably some Conservatives who are expecting to lose will actually hold on to their seats.
In line with what the Labour Party achieved in 1997. So looking like a swing so far of about 10.3%. I won't go into it. There's a whole thing I want to tell you about swings, swingometers, how much we can rely on them, because actually this does look like one of those elections where the swingometer isn't necessarily telling you the full story and why we need to show you it in different ways. But I feel like I've...
Nicole says you're wrong about the SNP. She's going to be after you. Okay.
Is Rachel Reeves' seat.
Right.
And Beth and I were talking, Beth and I were just talking about, in fact, yesterday, weren't we talking about how we remembered where all the seat names were? I don't know, do you have a way of remembering whose seat is what?
I just spend a lot of time in a dark room.
Do you?
I have a spreadsheet.
I do word association.
But that's just for fun. I mean,
So Rachel Reeves, Pudsey the Bear.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, Pontefract Cakes. Pontefract Cakes is...
Cooper.
Thank you, you see, it works. Do you like
taught
it?
me that one.
I get it.
Yeah.
Cooper,
Anyway,
Craig.
have a look. Talk me through those figures.
So what have we got here? Leeds West,
Rachel Reeves.
Pudsey. Rachel Reeves, obviously soon to Shadow Chancellor, soon. One suspects to be the first female Chancellor. What's interesting about this? OK, so first of all, Conservative share, down 25.1%. Reform up, though, 13.5%. But just have a look at this, OK? So you're not seeing a massive shift to the Labour Party. Obviously, this is kind of, in safe Labour territory. But you're not seeing a massive swift kind of shift across to the Labour Party. And that, again, is going to be the question. And there's quite some interesting charts I can show you about the efficiency of the Labour vote. Is Labour able to win a lot of seats, which it looks like they are heading towards winning a lot of seats, that's what the exit poll suggests, without necessarily increasing their share of the vote dramatically? Because so far, it's not going up dramatically.
We've got Sadiq Khan waiting, but I just want to...
Oh, sorry.
Just Sadiq Khan's waiting. Anything particularly that we can see from London
yet?
yet?
Beth had a question.
No, it's just that's the whole point of the Labour strategy. It's been to not pile up. They've been trying to not pile up the vote in areas where they're already winning, and they've been trying to pile up votes in marginal...
What? That doesn't make any sense. Piling up the vote. You mean piling up resources, I assume. It's good that Reeves started with solid backing. Telford changed from Tory to Labour. That's great news. Francois' majority is now smaller than yes. That's Brad. He looks like was it Danger Mouse Penfold? He looks like Penfold from the cartoon Danger Mouse. Anyway, let's hear what Sadiq Khan had to say.
Yeah, he said Manchester was the first city and you were second.
Well, Andy's got a great sense of humour. How's London looking
he has
today?
to. He's an Everton supporter.
Can I just say, Andy, I've been knocking on doors in communities we've not engaged in for 20 years. Yep. It's been quite remarkable. We're delivering leaflets on some streets, Andy, that we've not delivered in for 20 years with any confidence and hope in central, inner and outer London.
So who's likely to lose their seats? It's Jacob Rees-Mogg is likely to lose his seat, or it's possible that he'll lose his seat. We've seen Robert Buckland lose his seat. Robert Jenrick probably won't. He'll probably hold on to his seat, unfortunately. Suella Braverman will hold on to her seat. Gillian Keegan has lost her seat. Who else is likely to lose? A number of cabinet ministers. So they were saying about 15 cabinet ministers could lose their seats.
2017, 2019, people were unhappy with the Conservatives, but not enough to give us their vote. I think what Keir Starmer's done over the last 4.5 years is transformed our party so people feel comfortable giving us their vote now. But also, I think, Beth is spot on. What we've done in this campaign is actually...
Lord Baikal, yeah, I think you're right. Voters turn out down a lot because Conservatives and Labour stayed home, feeling that it was already a done deal election, or is it too early to tell? What's your opinion? Sorry to repeat. I think a lot of it will be down to turnout, but as you pointed out, it's going to be low turnout on the Labour side, but also low turnout on the Conservative side. So that sort of cancels each other out. It's still a little bit early to tell, but I do think that turnout is probably down a bit. It says here turnout at 57.1%, so down 7.3% so far. And I don't think that's going to be really very different all over the rest of the UK. So yeah, turnout is down. And low turnout helps the incumbent. So as we're seeing like really good results for Labour in the north, that could change in the south and in the Midlands. So, but for example, London, I think they've completely lost London, or if I don't think they actually had any MPs in London, did they?
Old, young. What Keir will do is bring us all together because, frankly speaking, we've got to come together now because our country deserves more. You'll see a Prime Minister under-promising and over-delivering, and I think it's really important.
That's what he needs to do.
Can I ask you a question?
Can I just say that we're waiting for Ed Davies' seat to declare momentarily, and Leon Atherton as well.
Yeah, it's Ruth Davidson, Sadiq. Good to speak to you again. You and Andy have quite a bit in common, not just your mayoralty positions now, but that you were both in government, and then when the party went into opposition, when Jeremy Corbyn became leader, I know you supported him in that. Andy didn't. You ran himself. You chose to leave Parliament. You chose to not be MPs while the party was in opposition. Now that it looks like you're on the cusp of government again, is it something you would wish to return to?
Well, actually, I voted for Andy in 2015 to be its leader of the Labour Party. But look, I'm quite clear. I think if the 19th century was a century of empire, 20th century a century of nations, the 21st century is about cities and mayors. And Andy and I both met Keir Starmer on a number of occasions over the last few months. Keir Starmer, Rachel Reeves, Angela Rayner, the Shadow Cabinet are all committed to devolving more powers and resources to cities and regions across the country. That includes London, includes Greater Manchester, includes Merseyside and elsewhere.
I've watched you speak. I've stood beside you while you've been speaking enough to know when you go into full politician mode, and when you get the hands out, that's full politician mode. And you didn't answer the question, which wasn't, do you like your job now? I get that you like your job now. The question was, would you go back into Parliament for a different job? Now you're back in government.
No, not at all. I've got the best job in politics. No, I will never go back. And one of the reasons why I'm so excited.
Of course, he's not going to answer that question. He's the mayor of London now. Like, if he had quit from being mayor of London, then he might say, yes, I'm interested. It's a bit of a silly question. Could people at least try to let Labour win the election before they start posturing about how they won't be able to deliver? They won't be able to win in 5 years. No, I understand that, but you know, it's a foregone conclusion that Labour have won. So, the honeymoon period will be very short, and people will be expect. Look, I think it's reasonable for people to expect Labour to start delivering. They but even not even criticizing, but expecting Labour to do things for people is not criticizing Labour. It's actually beneficial to Labour if they're able to improve the situation, if they're able to deal with the cost of living crisis, if they're able to grow the economy, if they're able to do these things and show the public that things have improved, then they'll be able to hold on to power.
Tell people what they're looking at. Lee, which is Leon Atherton, the seat that you used to have, waiting for that declaration. South West London, Ed Davies' seat as well. Let me tell you that Labour has gained Blackpool South, you'll say, but it was already a Labour seat after that scandal with Scott Benton. Thank you very much indeed. There was a by-election, but for the purposes of saying who had the seat, we go back to 2019, the by-election subsequent to that. So we are saying Blackpool South has won that seat. Waiting for Lee, waiting for Ed Davey. And Vale of Glamorgan as well, first seat in Wales, waiting for that one to come through in just a second or two. You were saying?
No, I think Trevor was trying to come in.
Oh, sorry. I'm so sorry, Trevor.
Just looking at Alex's comment. No, sorry, it was Damon's comment saying, you just missed Laura Kuenssberg looking sick as she announced another Tory loss.
a momentary lapse of judgment.
Yes, I
we've
am,
all
because
been there.
here's Lee.
But I wanted to ask
Yes,
you-
I am. Here we go. Here's Lee.
I never got. That's not Lee.
Is it not?
Sorry, here's a declaration.
Is it not Lee?
That's Vale of Glamorgan.
That's Vale of Glamorgan, I'm told.
This is the declaration of result of the poll for the election Parliament for Lee and Atherton on Thursday, the 4th of July, 2024. I, James Winterbottom, being the Deputy Returning Officer at the above election, do hereby give notice that the number of votes recorded for each candidate at the said election is as follows. Buckley Craig Allen, the English Democrats, Putting England First, 376. Jones Amelia, the Green Party, 1,653. Platt Joanne Marie, commonly known as Joe Platt, Labour and Cooperative Party, 19,971.
Joe!
Thomas Stuart David, Liberal Democrats, 1,597. Winstanley Michael William, the Conservative Party candidate, 6,483.
Now that's a majority.
Yeah.
broke the
Second on the hit list, wasn't it?
It was
For Labour.
fantastic, honestly. It makes me feel whole again that Lee has gone Labour. Honestly, it feels so good.
You
And
have
Joe
to declare an interest. She worked for you.
She did, and I got great affection for Joe. She's been, I say, brilliant for me. But
where do you think it went wrong for the Tories? Where to begin? Austerity, Brexit, Boris Johnson. Boris Johnson's dealing with the pandemic. Liz Truss, and then Rishi Sunak not being able to connect with ordinary people and talking down to them. So but it starts with austerity. I think we have to place the blame on a lot of these things on austerity, which was the result of David Cameron and George Osborne. They are the ones who started the problem, but also with Brexit. A Brexit referendum was a disastrous idea. So David Cameron and George Osborne have to take responsibility for this, but of course they won't.
To the people of Lee, Atherton, Tilsley, Goulburn, Loughton and Astley, after 14 years of Conservative failure, you've demanded change. We ran this election as a changed Labour Party. Thank you for putting your trust in us to change the country. This is a vote for a Labour Party that is focused on the priorities of working people.
So Reform more than the Tories again. Yeah, Reform are doing a lot better than the Tories so far. There you see in second place with almost double the number of votes than the Conservative had. You'd sort of see that happen if there was tactical voting taking place, but you can see the support for the Tories has completely collapsed there and has gone pretty much directly to Reform. And we're going to see more of that going forward, which is concerning because Reform are going to say, well, we're the real opposition. And in a sense, they are in many cases, because if you look at the vote share, in many cases, they're taking more votes than the Conservatives.
For us all. Over the last 4 years, under this Conservative government, things have got worse. The Labour Party has listened, learned from past mistakes and developed...
No, Tammy's right. Don't get me wrong. I'll be the first to criticise Labour when they get into power. Just waiting to judge them on what they do before and don't achieve in doing so. I hope the country does the same. Yeah, no, and I think most reasonable people wish them well and hope that they will grow the economy and they will rebuild public services. I'm just saying that if they're not successful, then it will open the door for the likes of Farage. And Farage supporters are saying that he'll be Prime Minister in 2029. At the moment, that seems like a joke, but it depends on, and I keep coming back to this point, the referendum on the incumbent. Are people happy with the incumbent, with the current government? They're not at the moment. That's why they kicked the Tories out. When Labour are going to the polls at the next election, be it a by-election or a general election, will people be happy with them? If they are, then they'll continue to vote for the Labour Party. If they're not, then they'll kick them out.
Sam for managing the campaign And to the Lee and Atherton constituency Labour Party, thank you for leading a professional and positive campaign. Your efforts are the foundation of this success, and it belongs to each and every
Okay, so one or two things to update you on. Conservatives have held Broxbourne. Should have come in around about midday. Midnight. Reform are less of a factor there, which means the betting market thought that the Conservatives would hold on, never bet against a bookie, is what my dad always used to say, and it looks as though that has proven to be the case. Thank you very much indeed. Vale of Glamorgan, former Wales Secretary, that has become a Labour gain. Vale of Glamorgan, first result in from Wales, is a Labour gain. And Colchester, now many of you will, or some of you will know, Colchester was James Cracknell, the Olympic rower.
And what did he say? What did he call the Conservative
I'm sure it was
campaign?
Wasn't it a swear word?
A corps leader would have won Labour at the general election. Me being Scottish, believe that's what they got. Well, you know, a potted plant would have won against the Tories. You know, they keep trying to say, some people are trying to say, well, Keir Starmer's a great leader and he was able to bring the party together. And, you know, he was able to turn things around for the Labour Party. People were more willing to vote for them. But, you know, I keep saying this, it was a referendum on the Conservative government, and people said no.
Remember? Yeah, Sadiq, you remember way back in 1998 when there was a referendum to establish the mayoralty. Those who were in favour of it basically wanted the mayoralty to have control of a lot of things, education, health, as well as transport. Now, the problem was that the then Labour government didn't trust Ken Livingstone to run that. But are you now thinking that with a new Labour government, that the next step is for you to take over other sectors, including, for example, some aspects of health?
Yeah, I think Trevor, one of the things that I think Andy, Steve Rotherham, Tracy Brabin, other mayors across the country...
I'm so sorry to interrupt you. Hartlepool declaration. I'm so sorry, Mr Mayor.
Oh, they're all coming in now. Red car.
Okay, so this is the Hartlepool declaration coming out. Oh, great news there for Anna Turley. She's regained red car. The Prime Minister Boris Johnson saying that red car became blue car. I think you'll find it's gone back to red car. Here we go.
The number of votes recorded for each candidate at the said election is as follows. Jonathan James Frederick Brash, Labour Party, 16,414, duly elected. Thomas William Dudley, commonly known as Tommy Dudley, Workers' Party of Britain, 248. Samantha Jane Lee, commonly known as Sam Lee, Independent, 895. Peter James Morn, Liberal Democrats, 572.
Oh, there you go.
Gillian Wendy Mortimer,
Reform. So that is Lee Anderson. Lee Anderson's one. Lee Anderson has gained Ashfield from the Conservatives.
Okay,
You're both looking at me in stunned silence.
Yeah.
No, I thought we were listening to the count. So I thought we weren't supposed to be talking.
Yeah,
Sorry.
No. Reform have gained Ashfield. In other words,
that's
Lee
their first gain,
Anderson.
isn't it?
Yeah, there's been a couple that have come in because there's a
I just answered this quickly and we'll get back to that. But yeah, this was sort of expected. We expected him to win. I expected him to win.
Speak, let's listen.
First of all, just a massive thank you to all the staff that's been here tonight helping. I know they worked incredibly hard and all the people that's worked throughout this election campaign. Special thanks to Ashfield District Council. But the biggest thanks of the night goes to my wonderful team over there who have stood by my side and watched me being grumpy over the past 6 weeks. They've been fantastic and I could not have done it without them. I stood in this town, my hometown, 4.5 years ago as a Conservative candidate and won. And I won comfortably, and the people of Ashfield backed me, and they've now backed me again as the Reform candidate for Ashfield. I said a few weeks back that there was going to be a reckoning on election night, and Ashfield, which is the capital of common sense, they are part of that reckoning. Now, this wonderful place, which I call my home, is going to have a...
Okay, I don't know if you want to hear his speech. I don't want to hear his speech. Oh my goodness. What's wrong with the people of Ashfield? You know, as you can see here, the results, they could have voted for Labour. They could have voted for an independent guy. But no, they went for Lee Anderson. What advantage is having Lee Anderson as an MP? What is he doing? What is he going to do? Like, at least you could make the argument for, well, at least if you have a Labour MP, they can do something for the constituency. It used to be a Labour seat. But they're going with Lee Anderson. Lee freaking Anderson. Leanderthal. Oh, God.
That it was going to be a Labour.
I mean, it reflects what we've been seeing, doesn't it? In the northeast, particularly. I think in areas that have been neglected.
Why do people vote for these liars? Maybe as just as I cut off Andy Burnham here, it's because it's a neglected area. Because the government have never, like the Tories, abandoned this particular constituency, and people look around and they want change. They look around and they say, look, it's destitute. Everything is run down. Let's protest. I think this is basically a protest vote, because he's not going to do anything in the House of Commons. He's not going to deliver anything. So it's a protest vote.
Party chair put in by Rishi Sunak. People, when he defected, thought, yeah, you'll go to Reform, but you will lose that seat in a general election. And now he has come back with a big vote, absolutely eclipsing. And he said there will be...
See, I believe that he would lose the seat before Nigel Farage jumped on board. And then when Farage jumped on board, it changed everything. So we're going to see Farage win his seat. We'll probably see Richard Tice win his seat. And many more, maybe many more, but at least those three. And because before Nigel Farage jumped on, I think there was a good chance that that Lee Anderson would have lost, because Farage was able to bring a lot of attention to Reform. So without him, I think there was a good chance that Lee Anderson would have lost there.
Them on and fight them on the issues and see what they actually have to do, and having a parliamentary group might actually expose what they believe, what their party positions are, and some of the things that people care about. Because at the moment we don't know. They're a blank sheet of paper to anybody.
This is a sick of politics.
Okay, let's bring in Charles Walker and Anne-Marie Trevelyan, should we? Hello to you both. Interested to see your immediate reaction to Reform gaining its first ever seat in the mother of all parliaments. Anne-Marie, to you first of all.
So yes, interesting to see that Lee has indeed won that seat. Obviously worked hard, charismatic, and a very front man for Reform. Up here in the northeast, what we're seeing is Reform, as you said, coming second. It's a very loud voice from Reform. It's, in Labour facing and now winning seats here, they're taking...
Choosing between improvement and protest. FUK. Yes, the only. Thanks for that super chat and welcome to the stream. I saw you before, but welcome to the stream officially. Did Reform do poorly in Scotland? Yeah, I don't even... I don't think they would have come anywhere winning a seat in Scotland. I think they're concentrated in particular constituencies like Lee Anderson in Ashfield, Farage in Clacton, and then I think it's Boston and Skegness, where Richard Tice is. I don't know about the other candidates, but there's a possibility that they would pick up more than 3 seats. But once again, why is Farage... This is all just about Farage. Lee Anderson is not there to actually represent people, to fight their corner. He's there to provide extra attention to Farage. No Scottish results yet.
Poll that you've been focusing on and saying the Tories are doing a bit better than the exit poll suggested had Broxbourne going Labour, and Broxbourne's been held by about 3,500 votes.
I think on the exit poll and just the way the seats fall, we are seeing some individual results that aren't reflected in that. So in the time that we've been talking, in the last half an hour, we've had both the Barnsley seats come in that were down to be a Reform in that poll. They were supposed to be part of the 13. One of them's been held by Labour by 8,000 votes, and one of them's been held by Labour by 5,000 votes. Now, that would indicate what Beth was saying earlier about the campaign to make sure that the votes get piled up by Labour in the right places where they're under pressure. So we might be seeing that while the vote share is right,
Keir
from the
Starmer
exit,
being applauded as he arrives at his seat.
The seats don't necessarily go the right way.
Pancras, hold that thought, please. You can carry on, sorry. We just wanted to get the applause.
I was just saying that while we've had, Ed's been showing us great graphics of how close to the mark the overall picture is, what everybody that's been involved in politics knows is that national pictures don't always relate to individual seats. And so that's 2 of the 13 that Reform are due to get tonight by the exit poll, that they've lost, one by 8,000 and one by 5,000.
Just I see a comment here. Someone please explain to me in American English if things are going well or not, please. It depends on your point of view. So for progressives, this is probably not going well. It depends if you describe the Labour Party as a progressive party. Many people describe it as a continuation of the Conservative Party. A lot of people who describe themselves as progressives and on the left are not happy with what's happening. They're concerned that the Green Party are not going to win as many seats as they had hoped. They're very concerned about Keir Starmer and the direction he's taking the Labour Party. So many people on the left are happy that the Conservatives are gone, but they're not happy with a massive majority for Keir Starmer. They were hoping for a hung parliament where he would be forced into a coalition with maybe the Liberal Democrats or the Greens or the SNP, although that wasn't likely to happen. So there was a hope that the majority Labour wins isn't so strong, so that he'd be more willing to listen to external voices than he will be in this case, because if he has a massive majority, he doesn't have to listen to other parties. He doesn't have to listen to Parliament. He can do as he wishes. But as I keep saying, you're going to start to see factions grow within the Labour majority. People will see, there's a chance for me to have power too. So you're going to see small factions form, and they'll want to extract concessions from the government.
Worried about what Labour might do in terms of squeezing them, but no, the Truss era was not something that was raised with me at all, interestingly.
OK, Charles Walker, just hearing that Torsten Bell, Chief Executive of the Resolution Foundation, has been elected in Swansea West, former head of policy for Ed Miliband. The Conservatives, 5th.
Yeah, not a great result that. But just going back to Lee Anderson, the Conservative Party should never have entertained him as a vice chairman. Yeah. Many of us warned the high-ups in the party that he wasn't a fit and proper person to carry the Conservative flag, and sadly we were ignored, and he's done our party enormous damage, and we're partly responsible for creating him. So,
and whose fault was that? That was Rishi Sunak's fault. Rishi Sunak made him... See, a lot of this blame has to be laid at Rishi Sunak's door, because he decided, OK, what we're going to do is I'm going to reinstate Suella Braverman, who's extremely toxic. That was a big mistake. Then he didn't remove the whip from Liz Truss and Kwasi Kwarteng after their disaster. So he couldn't distance himself from that because they were still in the party. He kept banging on about Jeremy Corbyn, but his hands were like I can't say he had blood on his hands, but he was connected to Liz Truss. He should have removed the whip, kicked her out of the party, stamped his authority. He didn't do that. And then he focused on immigration in order to deal with the threat of reform. But this, of course, what it did was it amplified reform. And the media amplified reform because they believed that the Tories were chasing them. If the Tories had ignored reform, if they had moved to the centre, if they had focused on the cost of living, they would have been in a better position today, I believe. But then hindsight is 2020. Red Devil Studio, thank you so much for that super chat. The reform surge is quite worrying. Yes, it is, because if Farage ends up with 15 seats, 13 seats, even 10 seats, He's going to be very noisy in the House of Commons. And he, unfortunately, I believe, is going to be another case of the tail wagging the government dog. He's going to be the one dictating a lot of policy. Why aren't you doing more on immigration? Why aren't you saving money for, stop wasting money on net zero, stuff like this. And the media love Farage and they love to give him a platform. So if he ended up with one seat and it was just Lee Anderson, then we wouldn't be hearing so much from Farage. But if he wins his seat, which is likely, and maybe half a dozen other seats or even a dozen seats, then you're going to hear a lot from Farage going forward. And that is worrying, because that's not the way, it's not representative of democracy, and that's not the way it should be going. Let me just come back to this for a moment.
We heard the applause as he came in, Mark. Hi.
Yep, Keir Starmer is in the House, or in the Camden...
Okay, we'll get to Keir Starmer in a moment. Roman General, thank you so much for that super chat. American here. Labour has inherited a poisoned cup. Too much damage has been done. Can they make a difference in a single parliament? No, they can't. They can try and undo some of the damage, but it's going to be a massive mountain to climb. So what they can try and do is do some cosmetic changes and try and convince people that they're actually improving things. If they can convince people, because politics is all about perception, if they're able to put in the minds of the public, yes, we have actually improved things, then they'll be able to hold on to power. But if they don't, then they'll be out. Just like the Tories. It's all smiles now, and I don't want to be cynical, but if they're not able to achieve things, if they're not able to show people that they've improved things, then they're going to lose power. And the first victim, of course, will be Keir Starmer himself. DUP lose Lagan Valley, Jeffrey Donaldson's seat to Circa Eastwood, Alliance Party. Wonderful news. Thanks so much for that, Super Chat Roisin, and thanks, Roman General. That's great news if that's the case with Lagan Valley. I'm a supporter of Circa Eastwood. I was hoping to get her on the channel. I had almost had it ready, and then there was a problem, and I think she had scheduling issues, so I wasn't able to get her on the channel. That was a few months back before the election was called. It would have been nice to have an MP, a future MP. Have some Australian dollars for your great work. Thank you so much, King of Pointless. Definitely not pointless. Thank you so much for that.
First reaction as these results come in showing really big swings to Labour, and of course for a really stunning result, their first majority from opposition in 27 years. He's pulled it off, and even 3 years ago we know he contemplated quitting. They lost a by-election.
Progressive Matter, thank you so much for that super chat. Looking to trade Trump for 6 of your worst fellas. You could trade Trump with, I don't know who's the worst, Farage. I don't know which is worse, Farage or Trump. They're pretty much even Stevens there. Thanks for that support. And you guys in America have your own worries. I really hope what's going to happen is Joe Biden stands down and he's replaced by another Democrat, because they have a better chance of holding on to power than Joe Biden. It's just crashing and burning.
July 2024. I, Steve Rumblow, being the acting returning officer at the above election, do hereby give notice that the number of votes recorded for each candidate at this election is as follows. Paul Simon Ellison, the Conservative Party, 4,273. George Galloway, Workers' Party, 11,508.
The numbers in there.
Yeah. 11,000. Let's see. They seem very happy.
Michael David Howard, Reform UK, 6,773. Andrew John Kelly, Liberal Democrats, 2,816. Martin David Savin, Green Party, 1,212. Paul Ward, Labour and Cooperative Party, 13,000.
War has won.
George Galloway is gone.
So George Galloway defeated and felt that he didn't need to, as a result, go onto the podium to hear the count. You're offended by that?
I'm not offended by it. I think it's true to form. I mean, we've seen George Galloway move around the country.
He's a carpetbagger. George Galloway, he didn't even bother to turn up to deliver a speech. That's how much he cares about Rochdale. He was just using it as a platform. He'll be off to some other constituency for the next by-election. That's George Galloway.
The conversation about how would the Muslim vote affect Labour came from this by-election that was, earlier in the year. We then saw that play out in some of the local elections in May, and particularly around the mayoral elections. So we heard your reporter in Birmingham talk about that. And if you look at the boxes that came out of Birmingham Yardley, Jess Phillips's seat, she would have lost that on that vote as it was projected. So there was a huge concern within Labour about what that would do, and they moved very quickly to shore up these seats. The fact that this has gone back to Labour, the fact that it's Paul...
Could Labour just ignore reform like they don't listen to them? I see the thing is, it depends on how the media operate, because the media love people like Nigel Farage because he results in clicks. He results in traffic coming to them. So they like to have Farage on. That's why Farage was so popular for the BBC loved to have Farage on all the time. But when it comes to Labour, Labour could try and ignore Farage, but if the media keep platforming him and keep platforming his ideas, like when it comes, look at the stopping the boats. The stopping the boats issue really started with Farage. Farage going out there with his Fisher-Price binoculars, looking at, calling out, oh, look at all these boats coming in. Nobody's talking about it. And eventually you had Sky News and you had others talking about it, when in reality, the percentage of people crossing the channel is nothing in comparison to the amount of people coming in to the country so-called legally. But the problem was Farage was constantly on talking about this, and then it became an issue. He made it into an issue. And then, of course, the government had to respond to it. And the government could have ignored it and said, look, we're processing these claims. But instead, they tried to turn it into a political issue themselves. They tried to run to the right of Farage. So, what we're going to do, we're going to stop the boats. This is the priority of British people. When the priority of British people was the cost of living crisis. You can ignore Farage he's on media. Like we can ignore Farage, and the government can try to ignore him, but unfortunately the media love to platform him. And if you try to ignore him when the media is platforming him, then you're going to be seen as out of touch.
Challenged me at the mayoral election. He claimed he'd save Rochdale Football Club. He claimed he'd open a new maternity unit. He claimed Rochdale was neglected. If you go to the centre of Rochdale, the place is being rebuilt. I've just put a new public transport system in there. He didn't understand the place. I mean, and everyone, you know what we're like in our part.
I'm going to call Liz Truss's seat now. I think Liz Truss will hold on to the seat, unfortunately.
Underestimate me, that'll be fun, as my dad always used to say.
Well, it was extraordinary circumstance of the by-election, wasn't it? Because Labour's candidate was on the ballot paper and then had to stand down. So it's a really good result, because he was only seeking to bring division to our communities. And we don't work like that in Greater Manchester. We're a place that kind of thrives on the fact that we are quite unified and we work together, different communities. So I'm glad to see the back of him from Greater Manchester. I think our communities will be relieved to see him gone. So, well done, Paul, though. A great result.
Absolutely. We're hearing that there's a recount in Chelsea and Fulham. That's Greg Hand's.
Can I also just add another one in that's come in?
Really quickly.
The Conservatives have held Castle Point.
They have.
Which, it might not seem that significant, but that's another one where reform were supposed to win. It's another one that was supposed to be part of that Reform 13. So if that's 4 now that was in that list that they've not taken...
But the vote collapsed, the Tory
completely collapsed. I'm not saying this is a good night for the Conservatives. I think I used the word massacre at the start of the programme.
Ed Davies' declaration, here we go. Let's see whether he comes in on a skateboard. I don't know what he's going to do.
As I said, the Honourable Member for Alton Towers.
not getting 30.
Ready?
Has Jeremy Corbyn won? I think so. Well, he's not
Councillor
declared
Liz
yet.
Green, being the returning officer for the Kingston and Surbiton constituency election held on the 4th of July 2024, do hereby give notice that the number of votes recorded for each candidate at the election is as follows. Ali Abdizai Abdullah, Workers' Party, 395.
Not very
Jason Chinnery, the official Monster Raving Loony Party, 230.
Thank you.
Deberji Das, the Green Party, 3,009. Edward Jonathan Davey, Liberal Democrats, 25,870. Helen Margaret Edward, the Conservative Party candidate, 8,635. Mark David Fox, Reform UK, 4,787. Eugene O'Dame, Labour Party, 6,561.
Okay.
Eunice, apologies.
Ed won his
Eunice.
seat. Ed likes that. number.
Yvonne Tracy, Kingston Independent Residents, Justice for
Okay. Galloway loses his seat, and 5 minutes later, his party loses to the Monster Raving Loony Party. Yes. Did they lose? Oh, it was about the same anyway.
He is being returned as the leader of the Liberal Dems, and 61 seats is the projection.
I would just love for one election where the Monster Raving Loony Party returned an MP. It would be just for fun. It'd be great, wouldn't it?
Labour Brigade, where is that?
Kilmarnock.
Great. Yeah, that's in that central belt that we expect to go almost wholesale SNP to Labour. I want to do a shout out though to local government in England. I always forget, because in Scotland we don't do this, the number of jabos, hats and rolls.
I love Screaming Lord Such. He was a card. Yeah, I love that guy as well. Thanks for that, Magic.
To serve Kingston and Surbiton and this great community over many years. And I'm humbled that you've given me the chance to serve you again. So let me start by saying a big thank you. And thank you to Sarah and all the returning officer team, and to all the staff and police who've worked so hard through the night. You are the unsung heroes of our democracy. It simply wouldn't work without you.
Well said, Monkey. Yeah.
And thank you to my fellow candidates for making this a campaign we can all be proud of. I wish you all well in the future. Now, I don't know if you could tell, but I've rather enjoyed this campaign. But what I've loved most hasn't been the paddleboarding or the bungee jumping. It's been speaking to people here in Kingston and Surbiton and across the United Kingdom about the challenges they face and their hopes for the future. People who are working hard, raising families, caring for loved ones, playing by the rules, but finding it harder and harder to make ends meet.
I really admire this guy. Like I know there was the scandal with the postmasters, but during the campaign he's been very human, and you've seen this human side come out where he cares about carers, and he's been talking about that. And you know, he comes across as a really nice guy, and you know, it's good to see him win his seat, and it's good to see him back in Parliament. So you know, it's good to. I like this guy. I like this. He's not going to be Prime Minister any day, but I think he does a good job.
We've listened to you, and we've heard you loud and clear. We've put your concerns.
Let's listen to Angela Rayner.
Can I give my sincere thanks to the returning officer and the team who worked so hard to give this result. And I give the same thanks to the police who have kept us safe, and all the other public servants who make our democracy work. I would also like to thank the other candidates, because democracy only works when people put themselves forward for office. I want to also say a few words of thanks to my family, my friends, the whole Labour team, and all those that have supported me, especially my agent, Jed Cooney. You have been such a source of strength to me, not just over the last weeks, but throughout my political life. You've stood by me, you've had my back, and now I hope to do you proud in a Labour government. Finally, most of all, I'd like to thank the people of Ashton-under-Lyne who have elected and re-elected me as your Member of Parliament these past 9 years. From the first day you placed your trust in me, it's been a great privilege to represent you in Parliament.
Like, it's a good result, but if we look at the figures there, the majority is 6,700. It's not a huge majority, and turnout was down 8%. That is worrying.
Raising the next generation, to the small businesses who tirelessly toil every day in the engine room of our economy, to the working people who are the bedrock of our country. There is no greater honour than to serve you. Throughout my life, I have faced challenges, but I've also seen the power that comes from our community. The people on Bridgehall Estate who have always known me as our Ange, the teachers who have had faith in me, the carers who I worked alongside, and the trade unionists I stood alongside. From all of them, I learned that by working together and never taking no for an answer, we can make change and make a difference. As they helped me when I needed it, I am now humbled to have the opportunity to make the difference for others. Because to represent this constituency is a privilege, but it is also a duty.
Okay. I see we have more results come in. Labour have taken Kilmarnock and Loudon. Was that a Tory seat? And then I saw Southport Labour gain. Awesome. So Southport was that's not, I'm thinking Southampton. That's Penny Mordaunt's seat. We would have heard of that. I'm not sure which is what is it? Southport.
Together, we have changed the Labour Party to offer that unity of purpose, that vision of renewal that our country so desperately needs. Today is our chance to turn the page and start a new chapter.
Is the video too loud,
to
guys?
tackle the cost of living crisis and to make work pay, to give working people the New Deal we deserve, and to provide
Farage, it'll be just a
homes
matter
that
of
we
how
need.
much of a majority he wins
To rebuild the public services on which we rely, and to ensure that every community across our country shares in our national success. I am proud of Ashton-under-Lyne. I am proud of Britain, a great country, a great people, and I am proud to serve you all. Thank you.
I'll move a bit closer to the microphone.
Your flash photography, right-hand side of your screen there, Nigel Farage arriving at his count. Worth mentioning that Angela Rayner, of course, was a care worker, and she has talked about her experience. First woman, actually, to represent that seat in 180 years. You can see everybody keen to see Nigel Farage.
And we'll now be going after a Labour vote.
What's a good vote share for reform for tonight? What do you want vote share wise?
As many as possible.
Why not Lee Anderson?
I've no idea. You're the clever people, not me.
What do you think about Lee Anderson?
Lee Anderson has won because he has the courage to jump to reform. There are many Conservative MPs who tonight will lose their seats because they lack that courage. And the really big message is this. Geographically now in most of the country, a vote for the Conservatives actually splits our vote and is a vote for Labour. The argument they've used against us can never be used again.
Would you like to be leader of the Conservative Party now, Mr. Farage?
The Conservative Party? What a ghastly bunch. What a terrible idea.
Talking at once there, Mary Cray, I should just say, Coventry East She has been re-elected, old friend of Angela Rayner. Steve Barclay used to be Health Secretary, deaf for now. He has been one of the rare victories for the Conservative Party, waiting for the declaration for Keir Starmer. That will, when we hear his speech, it will be his acceptance speech, but also potentially one or two things that we will hear from him about how he plans to run the next 5 years for this country. That coming up in Holborn and St Pancras. Before that, Gurpreet standing by for us in Clacton. Gurpreet.
Well, Nigel Farage has just made his way over here to the Clacton Leisure Centre. He spent the evening at the local Greek taverna as the exit polls dropped with his team. A few of them peeled over here early. I spoke to them. They were quietly confident, but they were staying calm. But they were quietly planning some of the raucous scenes later if Nigel Farage, as the exit polls suggest, does win here. It won't be an easy feat. It will require overturning a 25,000 Conservative majority. But I've spent the past few weeks with him on the campaign trail here in Clacton, and there is a lot of love for him in Clacton.
There was talk that Labour and the Conservatives could work out some sort of pact, some sort of tactical voting to keep Farage out, but I don't think that's going to work.
A victory. He will no doubt be buoyed by that exit poll, which suggests that he could win here. This is a man, of course, that's attempted 7 times to...
And Farage is there. If Farage didn't win, if he wasn't likely to win, he wouldn't have turned up. So
politics. When I asked him yesterday what success would look like, he said that this wasn't just about eating into the Conservatives' vote share, about doing them damage. It was about winning seats, about building a bridgehead in Parliament. And if that exit poll is anything to go by, it looks like that may be achieved. Lee Anderson in Ashfield has already...
Penno, thank you so much for that super chat. Hey Max, please pray for me. The 2 Aberdeenshire areas are protected to hold their Conservative seats. I want to see... I don't want to see any more blue up here. Yes, fingers crossed that the result in Scotland is not as bad as the exit poll is pointing to. And Sir John Curtis has said that you have to take the result in Scotland with a pinch of salt. So really hoping that the Conservatives do not hold on to their seats. It's likely that the Conservatives will end up with nothing in Scotland, but those seats will flip to Labour.
For now, while a lot of the framing around this has been what kind of impact or influence Reform UK's potential success could have on the Tories during their period in opposition, what's clear is that there's another aspect to this, which is what kind of impact Reform success could have to Labour in government.
OK, for now, thank you. There's a recount in Basildon, and that is where Richard Holden, who was parachuted in, the Conservative chairman, is. There's been a recount there. I can see pictures of Labour and the Conservatives. It's a three-way marginal, potentially. There's a lot of people. I can see the Labour candidate watching every vote as it's being recounted. Also hearing
I'm going to take a short
20 minutes time,
break, guys. I'll be back in about 2 minutes, so I'll just leave this running.
Is likely to declare Kimmy Baden's Hock's seat as well in about 10 minutes' time.
I'm told that it's now probable that that Jeremy Corbyn will hold Islington North. So it's edging towards that, yeah. Not certain, but
you got
probable.
any more than wow for me, Trevor?
No, it's an extraordinary thing. I mean, it's quite an extraordinary thing. As I was saying to John McDonnell, there's a peculiar historic irony, because he took the seat in 1983 from a guy who had defected from the Labour Party to the SDP, and it's really striking now at the other end, I guess, of his parliamentary career. He's the guy who's been expelled from the Labour Party, but he's won.
Yep.
It sounds like.
Looking at pictures there of Nigel Farage waiting for his count. He will not be, if he does win Clacton, the constituency, he will not be the first Reform MP in the House of Commons. That must sting a little bit, given how many times he's tried to become a Prime Minister. Ruth, Of the two results in from Scotland, the average SNP to Labour swing is 20 points. Kilmarnock and Loudon and Dumbartonshire West. Possible that the SNP will do even worse in the 10 seats that's predicted.
Yeah, we did hear, I think I mentioned around maybe 1 o'clock this morning, that from the people that had written the exit poll, all the psephologists behind it, that the numbers were a bit softer in Scotland on how it projected, because it was looking at Tory gains there. They had the SNP down a lot at 10, but it looks as if that might be on the optimistic level for them if this is played out. However, and I would caveat this a lot, Scotland is not a homogenous group, and you can't really just put a national swing across it. What happens in the Central Belt is very different to pockets of the North East, very different to the Highlands and Islands, and that South of Scotland band as well, right at the bottom, those 3 seats that sit across the bottom.
Ruth, on the face of it, though, this is a big story of the night that
huge.
maybe we're not focusing on enough. This is the collapse of the SNP, isn't it?
Well, if you think about when the exit poll came out, you suddenly had the third party of the United Kingdom. Now, they only stood in 59 seats, 57 now because of the boundary changes, but they got their question at Prime Minister's Questions every week. They had that platform, they had the short money. They're going to go down to the fifth party in the country. All of that is gone. All of that infrastructure is gone. The ability for them to come back is severely...
See, this is the thing I find funny, is that they'll say, look, the SNP are doing badly, that means independence is gone. But support for independence hasn't really changed. You know, the ups and downs of the SNP have had little impact on support for independence because they're separate things, which unionists like Ruth here don't seem to understand or pretend not to understand.
Andy was talking about kind of Anas Sarwar, the Scottish Labour leader. It's true, too, that when you talk to people around Starmer, they said that when he became leader, and they had at that time 1 MP in Scotland, he said, I want to govern for all of the nations, and was very...
Here's Keir Starmer's declaration.
All right, well, let's listen.
Great. Oh, look, there's Cuddle Me Elmo on the stage. Did you see that? They're all there.
Can you just leave a little bit long, so I'm going to step off for a minute. Lovely.
The Lib Dems have gained Chelmsford from the Conservatives, and Bolsover has gone to Labour.
Good news for Dennis there. He'll be pleased.
Dennis Skinner, of course.
I, Jenny Rowlands, being the acting returning officer at the election held in the Holborn and St Pancras constituency on the 4th of July 2024, do hereby give notice that the number of votes cast for each candidate in the election was as follows. Nick, the Incredible Flying Brick, the official Monster Raving Loony Party, 162. Charlie Clinton, Liberal Democrats, 2,236. Andrew Joseph Feinstein, 7,312. Wise Islam Independent, 636. Senthul Kumar Independent, 40. Mireen Malik, the Conservative Party candidate, 2,776. John Edmund Poynton, UK Independence Party, 75. David Roberts, Reform UK, 2,371. Tom Scripps, Socialist Equality Party, 61. Bobby Elmo Smith, 19. David Robert Stansel, Green Party, 4,030. Keir Starmer, Labour Party, 18,884.
Confirmation for you that the new MP for Holborn and St Pancras is also likely to be the next Prime Minister, Keir Starmer. We'll be listening to what he has to say in just a moment or two. I can tell you that Harlow has been a Labour gain. A key Labour target in Essex and a bellwether since 1983 was Robert Halfon's, the Education Select Committee, was his old seat. He was standing down.
223, and they were
and you can see 3 pages of people standing, waiting for their moment in the sun by standing with the would-be Prime Minister in Holborn and St Pancras.
I love the idea that we have, and I don't think it's same across all democracies in the world, that you've got incidents that happen and the way our democracy works, you can have an elbow character standing on stage with the potentially future next Prime Minister and get 19 votes and has exactly the same rights as everybody else to do so. And some of the vignettes that we had throughout through the campaign itself, there was a lovely Ring doorbell that captured Theresa May, up in Perth and Kinross, just chapping on the door saying, "You're not in."
The next Prime Minister.
It is a huge privilege to be re-elected to serve this constituency, the incredible community of Holborn and St Pancras. My home, where my kids have grown up, where my wife was born. And I have to thank Vic and my family more than anyone for their love and support and for keeping me totally grounded. Thank you, Vic. And thank you so much to the police and the returning officer for making sure every voice is heard and every vote is counted. And thank you to Andy White, a fantastic agent, the campaign team, the local party, and all the volunteers who've worked so hard over the last 6 weeks and beyond. Every door knocked, every leaflet delivered, every conversation had, it makes a massive difference. And lastly, I'd like to pay tribute to my fellow candidates who put themselves forward for public service. Because in this room, right here, beats the heart of our democracy. Not in Westminster or Whitehall, but in town halls and community centres up and down the country, in polling stations and voting booths, and most of all, in the hands of the people who hold the power of the vote. It all starts here. And it starts with you. Change begins in this community.
So I just want to read some of the comments here. Counting in Northern Ireland has stopped as the DUP have spotted a bag of cement in Casement Park. I'm not going to get into the context.
Service starts in this neighbourhood. The groups, the faith communities, the local organisations who serve week in, week out. And hope starts with that one kid from Somerstown who dares to believe that the future belongs to her. And with Labour, it will. Because I promise this, whether you voted for me or not, I will serve every person in this constituency. The mothers I sat with who've lost children to knife crime. The pensioners who can't get the doctor's appointments they desperately need. The local businesses who've struggled so hard to keep their head above water. I will speak out for you, have your back, fight your corner, every single.
Okay, and it's a typical speech. Starmer deserves better than gratuitous Farage split screen. Yeah, I don't know why they have Farage on the screen there. I'm keeping him muted in case he starts talking about his father being a toolmaker. If Farage wins his seat, do people have to be on standby with milkshakes? Probably. You should travel always with a milkshake. Have it sealed so it doesn't go off.
Thank you very much.
So let me tell you about Sir Keir Rodney Starmer. He's been an MP since 2015. He's hoping to go one better, and it looks as though that is going to happen. He's been the leader since 2020. He's a leading member of the Corbyn shadow cabinet, knighted for services to law and criminal justice. He has 2 children, and his daughter has said if he wins, she just wants him to know she isn't moving into Downing Street. I think she might be.
She is moving into Downing Street.
He was named after Keir Hardie, first leader of the Labour Party. Presently 216,000 followers on Instagram. I'm just going to say that's probably going to go up a little bit as a result. Although it is worth bearing in mind, polls suggested that half of people don't think that he will be a good Prime Minister, Beth?
I think what you got there is a hint of what he's going to say on the steps of Downing Street. You heard it there. His whole campaign is about serving humbly, about putting politics back in the service of working people, about ending performative politics and having politics that is about public service. And that is what his whole rhetoric has been all through this campaign. And I think when you see him tomorrow on the steps of Downing Street, it will all be about this. Is it today? I don't know where I am anymore. But it will be all about, and also about uniting the country, because to come quickly back to what I was talking to Andy about with Scotland, apparently when he became Labour leader, he said to his team, I cannot tolerate having one MP in Scotland. Like, I have to be a PM if I win that governs for the whole country. And so this whole aim to try and win big vote shares in all three nations, and they now think that they have achieved that they will be...
In Northern Ireland? It's like, we have to win seats in Wales, we have to win seats in England, we have to win seats in Scotland because we have to rule the nation. And Northern Ireland, no mention of Northern Ireland.
His vote's down 17%.
Yeah, well,
what is going on?
Well, this because they're not trying to stack up votes in safe seats.
Okay, I understand this, but this is a sort of weird way of responding to this. Why has his support? His share of the vote has not increased because they're not they don't want to win a huge majority there. That doesn't make any sense whatsoever.
To all of these target seats to try and win there. And it looks like the strategy is paying off. And that's why you're seeing big drops, I think, in seats where they're not trying to turn out the vote. Because what Corbyn managed to do was get quite a big vote share by turning out the vote, but not turning out the vote in the seats where you need people to switch from Conservative to Labour, and that was all of the strategy that McSweeney and his team tried to execute, which appears to be paying off.
Okay, just to say, Worcester Woman. Who remembers Worcester?
Sorry to interrupt.
Who remembers Worcester Woman?
Sorry, Labour confident of winning Shapps and Mordaunt's seats. I've just got that in.
Okay, let's find out what's happening with Grant Shapps' seat.
Oh, this should be good.
Declaration of results of poll. Election of a Member of Parliament for Welwyn Hatfield on Thursday, the 4th of July, 2024. I, Annie Brewster, being the returning officer at the above election, do hereby give notice that the number of votes recorded for each candidate at the said election is as follows. Aaron Jack Oliver, Reform UK, 6,397. Butcher Sarah, the Green Party, 2,986.
Under pressure from Labour, we should say.
Lewin Andrew Allen, Labour Party, 19,877.
Shapps in a lot of trouble.
Munro John Peter, Liberal Democrats, 3,117.
Come on.
Shapps Grant, the Conservative Party candidate, 16,078.
Bye-bye, Grant Shapps. Bye-bye, Defence Secretary. You are no longer in the House of Commons. Labour, having taken this first Cabinet Minister to fall to Labour.
He's the second.
Yes,
Alex Chilson is the second Cabinet Minister to go.
Well, I mean, obviously you work with people, and I've got on well with Grant in some ways, but he really started this unpicking of our plans for rail in the north, and he really alienated a lot of people in the way
he can get back to his
things,
business of
he treated
internet.
people, particularly my good friend
internet,
Steve Rotherham. So in our part of the world, there's not going to be many tears shed, I don't think, at this result at all.
Beth, do you want to have a look at that? Thoughts on that?
This is a massive blow. Grant Shapps wanted to run as leader. He's the Defence Secretary. He's gone. Look at the vote, down nearly 20 percentage points. And he's the second cabinet minister to fall. Now, in 97, 7 cabinet ministers lost their seats, and I just wonder if it's going to tick past that tonight. Alex Chalk, who's the former Justice Secretary, also lost in Cheltenham to the Lib Dems.
Let's see what happens with IDS. Ian Duncan Smith, another big beast in Chingford.
Lindsay Roberts-Egan, Acting Returning Officer for the Chingford and Woodford Green constituency, declare that the total number of votes given to each candidate was as follows. Chris Brodie, Green Party, 1,334. Ian Duncan Smith, the Conservative Party candidate, 17,281. Josh Hadley, Liberal Democrats, 1,275. Paul Lugery, Reform UK, 3,653. Faiza Shaheen, Independent, 12,445. Sharma Tatler, Labour Party candidate, 12,520.
Looks as though IDS has held on. Looks like IDS has held on.
It has. Yeah. Well, I think this goes back to something John McDonnell was saying.
Tanta, thank you so much for that super chat. Is that Terry Tibbs for Reform? Who's Terry Tibbs? I forget. Thanks for that support. Apologies, I can't answer. But that name is familiar.
And I just don't think this works to sort of try and take someone out like that. You know, if Labour is to be the government we all want it to be, it has to have breadth and depth, and it has to have voices from all sides coming towards it. And there's been a little too much, you know, taking out people who they may consider awkward and putting in others. And that didn't happen in the Blair era. It didn't happen.
See, what happened was in Ian Duncan Smith's seat, they had a candidate who was really popular, and then they removed her because of comments she made online. She shared some stuff on social media, and the Labour Party got rid of her and put in a new candidate. She ran as an independent, and she won. You heard it there. She got 12,000 votes. If she had been the Labour candidate, she probably would have won the seat, because the Labour brought in a new candidate, and that candidate wasn't as successful. So, unfortunately, Ian Duncan Donuts, the architect of universal credit, will remain in place.
Went too narrow because it took away some of those other voices, and it was only talking to the Brexiteer
It's happened in
group.
Leicester East as well. Have a look at these figures.
And I don't make this a major criticism.
Yeah.
I just think they need to rethink this approach to things.
Happened again.
I think your problem...
There you go. Same thing
again. The problem here, Andy, is that I don't think the party's quite worked out what to do about the issue of Gaza and Muslim votes, because exactly that, what you've just been saying, is what happened in IDS's constituency, and that's exactly what's happened
And
here.
other at the bottom, I should just say, is Keith
I think Claudia Webb
and we've seen in some other constituencies, I haven't remarked on it, but we've seen in some other constituencies, and what seems like an unlikely fall in Labour votes, and actually I've been ticking it up, a lot of it are in constituencies which are in the top 20 of Muslim, with Muslim constituents. So I think this is, I mean, it's not enough to have dented Labour very seriously, but it's a problem.
So it seems Labour have won.
I think what's on page 2 of that one as well, with Claudia Webb, is you've also got Keith Vaz, the former Labour MP.
That's what I was saying
too.
Yeah. He's the other. That's where he is.
That's not a straight read across. I just think the Chingford one stands out slightly different.
8%. That's pictures there of Nigel Farage waiting for his count in just a few moments.
Can I talk about a Labour big beast that's just won a seat in Scotland?
You can in just a second. Let me just tell people what they're expecting in about 5 minutes or so. We are waiting to see the result from Clacton, and if, as is expected, Nigel Farage will take that seat, he will be the second candidate for Reform that has won this evening. The first one being Lee Anderson, who was previously a Conservative MP. Before that, he represented Labour, of course. He is reform, wasn't thought to be able to win. He did. Yes, you can.
Yeah, so Paisley and Renfrewshire South, which was Douglas Alexander's old constituency, it was then won by Mary Black from the Labour Party to the SNP, has now gone back to Labour under Joanna Baxter. Now, a lot of people might not know who she is. She's the current chair of the NEC for the whole of the Labour Party. She's also on the Scottish Executive Board. She's a big trade unionist and has been very involved in Labour politics, both north and south of the border, for a long time. She will be, I would expect, at the first reshuffle or second, she'll come into government. She's one of these ones that are going to be fast-tracked for success, I would expect.
I would agree.
Joanna Baxter.
So Mary Black has lost her seat, it seems, from the SNP. Gotta go. Good luck, Brits. Down with the Tories. King of Pointless, thank you so much for your support tonight, and thanks for coming on, and have a great weekend. Stay safe.
Of the makeup of that seat, there's an awful lot of articulate people that will know exactly where to find his door. Let's put it that way.
They won't want him to be Foreign Secretary then, will they?
Well, they certainly will make sure that if he does that, he's going to come home and still take care of the washing and knitting as well.
Okay.
So he can, if he wants to play on the world stage, he's welcome to it. Yeah. But he's also got to see to the spuds at home.
I'm glad to see him.
Challenge. It's quite a challenge. Looking at pictures from Clacton on scene.
Apologies. Yeah, Mary Black was standing down, so she didn't lose the seat. Apologies.
Years that's been a Tory seat in the North East. Anne-Marie Trevelyan in Northumberland North might be the only Tory left in the North East of England.
Exactly that. Hexham, the second safest seat in the North East.
Yeah, I feel for Guy Opperman. He's an absolute powerhouse of campaigning. That won't be for lack of effort that he's lost that.
Swing was about 15 points, thereabouts. Yeah. Surprised?
In terms of what I've seen coming in from the North East, not so much. It's one of those ones that it is the fringe of.
Yeah, we're not able to see Farage's face. He doesn't look very happy.
For a long time, he's the right sort of Tory for it, if you know what I mean. He's very down to earth, works hard, hyperactive, family man, very in touch with the seat. He's not, he doesn't stay away in Westminster. He always wants to be back in his constituency patch. That'll be a tough one for him to take.
Yeah, Grant Shapps has been speaking. I just wanted to also tell you, Basildon, Islington North, Clacton, all going to declare momentarily. Let's hear if we can squeeze in Grant Shapps.
I know that you will represent the people to the very best of your ability, and I wish you well as you take up the baton. In addition to representing Welland Hatfield, I have also had the honour to have served in more cabinet posts than most. From party chairman to...
Okay, we don't really need to hear about Grant Shapps. I suppose we can't win them all, but rumours are the DUP, Belfast DUP, down to 3 seats. Andrew, thank you so much for that super chat. Thanks for the commentary. Please, Brits, learn from Australia's single transferable vote. Yes, what needs to take place in the next parliament is electoral reform. Introduce proportional representation, change the system completely, move away from first past the post. It's an absolute disaster.
Increase our armed forces spending. It's clear tonight that Britain will have a new government in the morning.
Just she has a sword in case Shapps gets any ideas.
Our armed forces may suffer, and so will our friends in Ukraine. If there's something that I'm incredibly proud about in Britain today, it's our staunch and unwavering support for Ukraine and its democracy. And that must never waver, even...
Right, so here we go. We've got 3 big beast seats coming your way. Are you ready, ladies and gentlemen? Edge of your seats. You were flagging, weren't you? Honestly, sit up, take note. Clacton coming up very shortly. Why is that important? Because that is the man in the middle there, as you can see, Nigel Farage. We've also got Basildon and Billericay. That was an ultra-safe seat, so much so that the Tories thought, you know what we're going to do? We're going to put our Conservative chairman in there. Is an absolute shoo-in. It's had... I don't know what he's going to do. Let's wait and see. He's had a recount there. So Islington North as well. And Beth's got news on Islington North for us, just as she's put a sweetie in her mouth.
It is probable that it is going to go to Jeremy Corbyn. He's going to retain the seat. So Labour...
As an independent.
As an independent. And then John McDonnell was saying he should be let back into the party. And Andy, you were sort of intimating a bit of that, weren't you, about making it a bit of a broader church again?
I just think that's what a government needs. You know, it needs voices from all around, and that's what sustains a government in power, when you've got breadth and depth in terms...
I think it'd be a good idea to bring back Jeremy Corbyn, but I don't see Starmer doing that.
Or I can't knock those who've put together this strategy, this general election strategy for Labour. I'm making some points at the margins, if you like. But on the whole, I think it's right for me to recognise Morgan and all the others who've put together. And it has been quite a ruthless strategy in the way that you were describing, you know, not piling up votes where they're not needed.
Okay.
So, but I am just making that point. I think the Blair and Brown governments benefited from allowing those other voices to be part of the mix.
OK. Eighth time of asking, can he finally be an MP? Moments away from finding out. Ed, have you got a chart?
I've got a chart.
Great.
I've got the swingometer.
Ooh. I thought we weren't doing that.
Let's just rejoice at that news.
He's got a swingometer.
But I've got bad news, because it's not really...
Working. Not swinging.
Not worth having. It's working, but it's not working. Let me show you. Basically, so this is your swingometer. And what's the idea here? It's all about... So these are the seats that at the start of the night were already Labour. These were the seats that at the start of the night were Conservative. And the whole idea is basically, if across the country there is a uniform swing, so in all of the seats you're seeing the same movement from the Conservative to Labour or the other way, then this needle goes like that, and then gradually all of these seats are turned red, and then by the time the needle gets there, it's eaten up enough seats that you get into this majority territory. But here's the thing, OK, so if you look at the amount of swing that we're seeing across the country right now and activate the swingometer, look at what happens. OK, the swingometer, the needle goes up, 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 and we're in hung parliament territory. So actually, the swingometer is basically telling a kind of duff story here. It's saying that Labour's not going to be able to win in these seats over here, but we know it is already. We know it is already. And why is that happening? It's because you're not seeing a uniform swing across the country. If you were seeing a uniform swing across the country, basically with all seats seeing exactly the same change, then you'd expect that seats, for instance, where the Conservatives didn't have much of a majority before, through to seats where the Conservatives had a big share of the vote, you'd expect all of them to be behaving the same way. But let me show you what's actually happening. Look, this is quite interesting. In seats where the Conservatives don't have that much of the share of the vote, they're actually gaining a little bit. So it's going from Labour to the Conservative Party. But the bigger the share of the vote the Conservatives have, the more they're losing. The more they're losing. And that really matters, because in areas where previously they could rely on quite a big share, they're losing way above where you would normally expect. And that is part of the explanation for how the Labour Party is heading, potentially, according to the exit poll, but also according to what we're looking at in these numbers, for a big majority. It's going way beyond where the swing would suggest. And in fact, it's going towards historic territory. If we just look again at where we are right now. So this is showing you the change in the share of the vote for all the parties going back through history, and it's showing you the biggest falls, essentially. So when you're going from a vote share, a big vote share, to a small vote share, this is basically showing you that. And the bigger the bars are, the worse you're doing. So that, for instance, that's the Lib Dems in 2015. You can see the Labour Party suffering there. You can see the Conservative Party in 1997. And the key thing here is, look at this. This is the biggest fall in the share of the vote that we have seen from any party going back to 1835. It's worse than the Liberal collapse after the First World War. It's worse than...
It's like you have to go back to the time of Jacob Rees-Mogg here.
1997 for the Conservative Party. It's a truly historic thing. And what's critical is this is actually based on the figures we have so far.
I'm so sorry, I've got to interrupt you.
This is happening right now. Kate.
Yeah, the Islington North. Jeremy Corbyn. Here we go.
Held on Thursday, the 4th of July, 2024, to hereby give notice that the number of votes recorded for each candidate at the said election is as follows. Vikas Agarwal, Liberal Democrats, 1,661. That's 1661. Jeremy Bernard Corbyn, commonly known as Jeremy Corbyn, independent, 24,000.
Yeah, looks like a shoo-in, but we'll just wait for the Labour vote.
That's 24120. Karen Ann Harries, the Conservative Party candidate, 1,950. 1950. Paul Dominic Jostling, 3232. Sheridan Virginia Cates, commonly known as Sheridan Cates, Green Party, 2,660. Praffle Nargan, Labour Party.
Unlucky, mate.
16,800.
As Becky predicted about an hour or so ago, Jeremy Corbyn has gained the seat as an independent.
I really wish Jeremy Corbyn had run as a Green MP because he could, a Green candidate, because he could have actually helped the Green Party gain an extra seat instead of him running as an independent. Now that was his decision, but I think it would have been his policies are pretty much the same as the Green Party, and it would have allowed the Green Party to have an extra MP in Parliament, which is better than having an extra independent in Parliament.
Ended up in different positions on that, and you can say that this had to be handled in a different way to draw that clear line. But that reflects, I think, if I'm honest, the person that Jeremy Corbyn is in terms of how he's regarded by his community. You can't get a vote like that without putting in the work, being well liked in your area, somebody that people want to support. I mean, that speaks for
breaking news. First independent win since 2001.
Jonathan Ashworth has lost his seat in Leicester South. Just coming in.
Oh my goodness me!
To an independent candidate, and I believe that was one of our Gaza seats. It was one of our Gaza seats.
Let's pause. Listen to Jeremy Corbyn. Come back to that.
Thank you very much for the declaration, and can I first of all thank you and the returning officer and all the staff that have arranged this election for the very hard work and very efficient way in which it's been run. It is a credit to Islington. Thank you very much for the great work that you've done in those respects. I also want to place on record my enormous thanks to the people of Islington North for electing me for the 11th time.
Clacton's declaring.
Bensilem Matthew, Liberal Democrats, 2016. Farage Nigel Paul, Reform UK, 21,225.
Yeah, I think they were reading those, they were weighing them, I think.
Jameson Craig, Climate Party, 48. Mac Tony, Independent, 317. Osborne Natasha, Green Party, 1,935. Owusa Nepal Jovan, Labour Party, 7,448.
So you're thinking of a couple of agitators to have in the House of Commons.
Tassos Heritage Party, 33.
Listen to the Conservative vote.
Andrew, UKIP, No to Illegal Immigration, 116. Watling Giles Francis, the Conservative Party candidate, 12,820.
There we go. So I was saying, if you want a couple of agitators, you'd go for Corbyn and Farage, wouldn't you, Beth?
So Corbyn has held on in Islington North as an independent. That was a hard-fought battle, but he had many people out campaigning. I live near there, and it was a very active campaign. And Farage wins Clacton on the 8th attempt. He finally becomes a member of Parliament, and this matters because he now has a democratic mandate.
Here we go.
At tendering, And I have to say, fellow candidates, it's been a well-run, well-fought and remarkably clean election battle. I think we'd all agree on that, and thank you for your services. I promise that I will do my absolute best as a Member of Parliament. I had 20 years as an MEP, but it's not quite the same link or same responsibility with constituents. I will do my absolute best to put Clacton on the map. I'll do my best.
Okay, yeah, as requested, I have muted him. Look, I really don't understand what the people of Clacton are expecting him to do. Is he going to open a surgery and listen to their questions about, potholes and stuff like that? No, he's not. He's there for himself. It's all about him. It's all about boosting his image. And, and look, the people of Clacton will discover this later on. They'll discover that, well, actually Farage isn't doing anything for us. He's just ranting and raving about wokeness and about the European Union and about immigrants, but is he actually doing anything to improve things in Clacton? No. So he'll win this seat. The next election, he'll probably lose it because, what's the point in voting for somebody who's just going to rant and rave in Parliament? Farage is a clown, yes. It's sad because, the people of Clacton deserve a bit better. They're looking around, they're seeing, the shops closed, they're seeing infrastructure crumbling. They're upset with the Conservatives, and instead of actually, voting for the Labour Party, who may actually be able to do something for them, we'll vote for this guy. Because what do you expect him to achieve? Like, for you, he'll do a lot for himself, but what is he going to do for you? I'm not against the idea of voting for parties who will not be in government. That's a different thing. But Farage is just there for himself. Man of the people, millionaire banker. Yes. He can't make Clacton any more of a shithole. I assume that's true. Yes.
Yes. There's no enthusiasm for Labour. There's no enthusiasm for Starmer whatsoever. In fact, about half of the vote is simply an anti-Conservative vote. This Labour government will be in trouble very, very quickly. We will now be targeting Labour votes. We're coming for Labour, be in no doubt about that. I want to thank the team that have helped me do this over the last few weeks, my fellow candidates for behaving as impeccably as they have. Believe me, folks, this is just the first step of something that is going to stun all of you. Thank you very much.
Coming for Labour is what Nigel Farage has to say. He does not like this first-past-the-post system. Rather like you, Andy Burnham. Be careful what you wish for. Hartsmere is going to declare in just a moment. Hartsmere, of course, Deputy Prime Minister.
Thank you.
And what else have we got? Life in Horncastle. Sorry, go on.
No, I don't agree with him on barely anything, but on that, I think he's got a point. I think we're seeing tonight that Britain is a five-party political system now. We've got Greens polling.
Well said,
in large parts of the country. Lib Dems doing well. Reform now. That kind of second force on the right is established. The Tories, obviously, Labour. How can you reflect that in a first-past-the-post system? You can't. So I think the voices for reform will get louder from not just the left anymore, from the left and the right, it would seem.
Declaration, I think this is Hartsmere, is it? Which would be Oliver Dowden.
Undersigned being the acting returning officer for the Hartsmere constituency at the election held on Thursday, 4th of July, 2024, do hereby give notice that the number of votes cast for each candidate at the election is as follows. Name of candidate: Bolster Raymond, Independent. Number of votes: 536. Dowden Oliver James, the Conservative Party candidate: 21,451.
That's a pretty good result. Let's see what else.
Green Party: 2,267. Maternelle Emma Lillian, Liberal Democrat: 3,710. Selkirk Darren Bruce, Reform UK: 6,584. Tapper Joshua Daniel, Labour Party: 13,459.
Looks as though
The number of ballot papers rejected.
He's safe. There you go. So there was some concern for Oliver Dowden's seat, but he has been returned quite easily. Promoted after Dominic Raab left the party, long-standing ally of the Prime Minister, played the role as Miliband for Cameron every Wednesday before Prime Minister's questions. Kemi Badenoch has continued to move towards potentially being the next leader of the Conservative Party. She has remained, but she really took a thumping. Kemi Badenoch.
Yeah, I haven't seen her number yet.
No, OK, we'll come back to it.
Yeah, there was some online, some questions about whether enough postal votes were issued in that seat and whether there would be some form of later challenge, depending on how tight the race was. So that.
They're calling it the Gaza penalty for Labour's stance on the war. Yes, so Labour have taken a massive hit when it came to, in certain constituencies, regarding their stance on Gaza, and that they suffered that. Yeah, definitely.
Or a pretty catastrophic.
Are we not going to have some inquiry into postal votes after this election? Because a friend of mine had to go all the way back
the Home
from London,
Secretary James
today to vote in Warrington. In Tatton, because his vote.
But the big problem with Scotland, there's some trends emerging,
but all over the
very
country.
Low turnout, by the way.
Yeah.
Average turnout at the moment 58.2.
Yeah. Just to tell people what they're looking at, that's the Home Secretary in Braintree looking at his count.
We're beginning to see the emergence of this thing that I think people in Labour were worried about, which was the impact of Gaza in seats where there's a high number of Muslims. So
can we talk about that?
We're seeing some of that already, and I think we need to keep our eyes out for Birmingham.
Rochdale doesn't reflect that, Trevor.
Well, you say that. Galloway still took 11,000 votes. That's 11,500
Not
votes.
so cleverly.
He's had a seat, but it's still... Paul Waugh's vote was 30% down on Labour last time. So it is having an impact. And I think this Farage... Lee Anderson said, we want our country back, which anybody who follows politics on the right, we know what that means.
I want to talk us through Leicester South, Beth. And Beth
this
and I
is a
were
big
just
thing.
Beth and I were just debating whether or not this is the Portillo moment.
Well, it was the kind of gasp moment for me when I saw it come up, because that genuinely surprised me. I was shocked by that, in the sense that it is true that we had this seat on our watch list of 16 seats that could be vulnerable to the discontent around Gaza and the way that many communities believe that Labour has handled the issue. And you can see the result there. John Ashworth, he will be absolutely gutted.
He will.
Losing to an independent. But look, there was 2 independent candidates, and between them they racked up over, 19,000 votes. So Jonathan Ashworth has gone, and there's another number of seats, especially around Birmingham, which we're going to have to look at really closely now, right?
As you all know, this is somebody who's given huge service to the Labour Party. He lives and breathes it. And actually, I don't know what you would say, Kay, but one of Labour's better performers in the media comes on, he answers questions properly. He's a very, 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 very capable, talented politician, and it's a result that's going to be hard on him, because I would imagine, I wasn't in the room, but he would have been one of those arguing for a different position on Gaza within the shadow cabinet, and this is where politics sometimes is so
reforms gained in Great Yarmouth, so that's a third seat.
That's a Tory seat.
Gain in Great Yarmouth was Brandon Lewis's old seat.
That is
another former chairman of the Conservative Party.
So that's Great Yarmouth.
There's also that's come in the first bit of good news for the SNP. They've been taking a bit of a thumping. They're down. I think they've down.
The country Lee Anderson wants back is Airstrip 1. Yes.
Flynn has held his Aberdeen South seat. That was in the balance there for quite some time. So that'll be a big relief to the SNP, because to lose your Westminster leader is quite a significant moment. We saw it when Angus Robertson went in 2017.
He's one of their big voices, isn't he?
Yeah, he is one of their big voices, and tipped as a future leader of the SNP.
Yeah. Wow. I don't know what you and I are going to do now, Kate. We have Jonathan Ashworth gone and Grant Shapps gone.
Well, Michael Fabricant's gone.
They're the people that both parties feel.
Your programme has both of them.
That's true. Michael Fabricant has also lost his seat.
Yeah,
Michael Fabricant.
Okay. I've got the. This is the reform vote from Great Yarmouth. It's Reform 14,385, Labour 12,959. and Conservative 10,000. I've just got this from someone who sent it through to me. So, Reform. I mean, Brandon Lewis is a former party chair, held numerous cabinet positions. Great Yarmouth on the Norfolk coast there, go into Reform. That is going to be a big blow to them, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, it's one of those ones that's a bit of a banker. I mean, you would not in any other election go into that
Although
thinking
it was
that
a
was a seat
72%
at
leave
risk.
seat.
Yeah, that is true.
Yeah, so, you know, perhaps...
It's a classic left-behind seat. Coastal,
Yeah.
tourism's
It gets
gone.
worse. Can I just say...
Aging population, the demographic
Tories
is older.
came third.
Yeah.
In Great Yarmouth.
Yeah.
Third. Brandon Lewis is
After
coming in to
Labour.
see us in just a moment.
He's going to be...
I hope he's not going to turn on his
Poor
heel.
Michael
he would never do that.
No, but yeah, I mean, he was always known as a safe pair of hands, wasn't he? So let's see what he does.
It's you know, what does he bring to the table? He's a pound shop Boris Johnson. So well done, English. Trump has recommended that Israel wipe out Gaza. Oh my God. Fabricant's gone. Let's celebrate. Yes. It was a hairy situation towards the end, but then he lost the seat. Farage, Fabricant can earn a living as a Boris Johnson impersonator. So basically no change there. I'm on to my 4th bottle of cider, and I haven't even drank anything yet.
A spiky character, I think it's fair to say.
Although he did give me some support over
Yeah.
technical education, but I think most people in Labour areas...
Fantastic. Jonathan Gullis has lost his seat. It wasn't a huge surprise there, but Jonathan Gullis is gone. That's wonderful. The House of Commons hooligan, as I like to call him.
And I think, but she has managed to hold on. Hey, it doesn't matter. If it's only one, it doesn't matter, because you've still got your seat, haven't you? Ed?
So this is a really quick one, but I know you were talking about what was happening in the Leicester constituencies, and real surprise there
Gaza,
actually. Jonathan Ashworth losing his seat, a safe Labour seat, or so people thought. Here are the numbers there. Look at that, 35-point fall for the Labour Party, 35.2 for Adam Shocker, and it's just worth saying, when you look at these numbers, you have to bear in mind, the demographics of different parts of the country we're talking about here and what's going on beneath the surface. And Leicester South, one of the highest proportions of Muslim voters, and Gaza was...
Gullis and Fabricant off to the zoo. Well said, Brad.
Of looking at this is not just looking at one constituency, but looking across different constituencies for the Labour vote. And here you can see, essentially, we're showing you different parts, different Labour constituencies, ranked in terms of the Muslim populations. So from more people who are Muslim through to lower Muslim populations. And just look, in lower Muslim population areas, the Labour vote's going up. So up 3.4%. But look, as you move into areas with higher Muslim...
Wolverness makes a very valid point. It's not just Muslims, but it's also people who agree that, who disagree with Labour's stance on Gaza. It doesn't have to be just Muslims. Well said.
Depending, on what the Muslim population is, some of the urban populations, people are unhappy about the Gaza policy of the Labour Party, and you're seeing that kind of borne out.
And this is something I said at the very beginning. When Keir Starmer messed up, if that's what he did, when it came to comments about cutting off water and food to Gaza, I always said, why didn't they take the UN position? Say, look, we're going to refer to the UN. This is what the UN is saying about the situation in Gaza. Well, let's hear what this guy has to say.
Disappointed. By lunchtime, my team up there, who are very experienced, have fought lots of campaigns successfully, including last year's locals, where we did manage to hold off Labour, but they know what
he lost in a limited and specific way.
Time today that it was going to be. Basically, we've got a huge amount of data. They work hard in Great Yarmouth. We've always campaigned. So we felt we knew where our potential voters were. And basically, the Conservative voters of 2019, 17, to an extent 15, voted.
Jimmy Max, hope you're holding up. I decided to come down to London, but typical everything is shit overnight to get back to my hugely expensive hotel. Sorry to hear that. Hope you're stay safe and be careful out on the streets.
Consistently Conservative voters, if they're then not answering your question, that does answer the question.
If you'd fought it again, if you'd fought again, would you have held the seat?
Who knows? But with that kind of gap, we all like to think we've got.
Well said, Yoni. When accepting genocide becomes a wedge issue, yeah, it's pretty sad. Once again, I keep coming back to the point. They should have said, "Look, this is what the UN is saying," and go with that.
And I've gone from
Alliance
17,600
Lagan Valley from the
DUP.
That's great. That's wonderful.
Simon Hart's lost his seat.
Simon, the Chief Whip.
Chief Whip.
The former Chief Whip. That's the third Cabinet Minister. Brandon, you must feel absolutely gutted, don't you, about that seat?
Not just that seat, but we're seeing people losing seats tonight who have been hard-working MPs and their teams and their staff, all of that. There's a human side to this as well. So, look, this is a really bad night for our party. There's no getting away from it. This is a dreadful result for our party.
Where do you even begin? You're a former party chair, you're a big campaigner, you've sat in loads of cabinet seats. What are the mistakes? How did it get this bad and go so wrong?
I think that's going to be a PhD, let alone an A-level question for the future. I think there's a whole series of things you can go back over a period of time that have built up, not just the cycle of 14 years, but a whole range of things that have happened and done, and the public have taken a view. And what's interesting tonight, I think what will be interesting as the night develops on further is in certain areas, clearly Reform have done huge damage to the Conservatives. What I would say to my party is we need to see where we end up in a few hours' time with more results, because there will be a temptation to go chasing a hard right-wing vote. I think that sometimes misunderstands why some people are voting for, but also is missing the fact we're losing seats to Liberal Democrats. That's not...
He's right, but I don't think the Conservatives will actually listen to this. They're going to go, oh, we lost because Rishi Sunak was too moderate. Rishi Sunak wasn't a real Conservative. What we need to do is we need to follow Nigel Farage. We need to be more extreme than Nigel Farage. And this is what you're going to hear, unfortunately, because the people who will still hold on to their seats will be the likes of Suella Braverman and Kemi Badenoch.
Gillian Keegan, declaration in just a moment or two. She's in trouble from the Lib Dems.
Yep.
Is that what you're going to say?
Yeah, well, no, as I say, I think we're going to... And that's going to be the challenge,
It wasn't just
I think.
the timing, though, was it?
Oh, no. As I said, I did say,
Should we
there's a whole range
listen to the declaration and then come back? Here we go, Gillian Keegan. She said she was going to fight to the end. Let's see if she fought hard enough.
Good morning, everybody. I, Philippa Gogarty, High Sheriff of West Sussex, being the returning officer at the election of a Member of Parliament for the Chichester constituency, do hereby give notice that the number of votes recorded for each candidate at the said election is as follows.
High Sheriff is a cool name.
Brown, Fuller, Jessica, Sean, Louise, Liberal Democrats, 25,540.
25,000 for the Lib Dems.
Yeah.
I think you can see from Gillian Keegan's face.
Labour Party, 3,175.
Listen to the voting going on, right?
DeSantis, Theresa, Reform UK, 7,859. Emerson, Andrew, Independents, 190. Keegan, Gillian, the Conservative Party candidate, 13,368.
13,000. It's all over for one of your colleagues. Gillian Keegan, 12,000 plus behind the Liberal Democrats.
Yeah, and that backs up the point I was just making. There's been a period of the evening where you see it on social media and that, where people are talking about what Reform is doing on the right of politics, but that doesn't recognise this challenge I think we're going to see from the Liberal Democrats as well. And our party's going to have to take some time to think through how it manages that.
It seems to me, Brandon, that
Suella Braverman's declaration.
Andrew Wannell, being the acting returning officer at the Fareham and Waterloo election, do hereby give notice that the number of votes recorded for each candidate at the said election is as follows. Suella Braverman, 17,561. Kevin Chippendall Higgin, Reform UK, 9,084. Edward Dean, Rejoin EU, 210.
Hey.
Gemma Furnival, Labour Party, 11,482. Bella Hewitt, Liberal Democrats, 9,533.
So Suella Braverman has held on to her seat. At this rate, she might be the next leader.
Yes.
Brandon Lewis.
Well, I think we're going to have to see who is still standing in a few hours'
This is
time.
the Liberal Democrats
as I say, this is one of the things the party's going to be looking at.
Liberal
Suella's
Democrats and
made
the
no
Labour Party
secret
should
of the
have
fact
worked
that she
together
wants
there.
to
They could have kicked her out.
run for leader. She ran obviously in 2022 as well. So I suspect that, there'll be a few people, and over the next couple of weeks, parties first of all got to select a new chairman of the 22 committee. That's process-wise, because they do that first stage of the process, and then they'll move into the parliamentarians deciding who's going to be the final two.
Let's listen to her. Shall we see what she says?
Launch her leadership bid.
I want to start with a few.
No, I don't want to listen to her. Sorry, guys. I just can't stand that woman. Okay. You see his. So once again, if the Liberal Democrats and the Labour Party had worked together, they could have ousted her. Probably a bit difficult, but they would have got close to it. Yes, mute her. Sorry, I can't stand her. Do we have to listen to the migrant-hating migrant? No, we don't. A missed opportunity. Yeah, there was a missed opportunity there. Why do they? Look, what does she bring to the table? All she has going for her is hate. That's it. We have another one.
Returning officer at the above election do hereby give notice that the number of votes recorded for each candidate at the said election is as follows: Fraser, Edward George Watson, known as Ed Fraser, Green Party, 1,115. Freeston, Oliver Daniel William, Reform UK, 10,533. G. Mark Patrick, Trade Unionist and Socialist Coalition, 222. Lawson, John Craig, Liberal Democrats, 1,036. Nietzsche Townend, Leah, known as Leah Nietzsche, the Conservative Party candidate, 8,269. On, Melanie, Labour Party, 15,336.
It's a Labour victory.
Stevenson,
Conservatives in third place.
That used to be a Labour seat. That was won by her, Leah Nietzsche, in 2019. Get Brexit done.
Greens, yes. Thanks. So she's a Green Gain from Labour in Bristol Central. So that's the shadow culture secretary or would-be culture secretary. So that's two cabinet ministers now that would have gone into a Labour government that have gone. John Ashworth and Thangham.
And for
can I pick up a trend as well that's happening in Scotland
and
that we haven't talked
cabinet
about?
secretaries who have lost from the Conservatives.
And I think one of the things we're seeing, and I think we will see more tonight, is we'll see, I think more than before, more and more outliers. We will see these odd results that where because of what the reform's doing, we've seen independent votes. That's going to give some dynamics that are unexpected. I think we're going to see a lot of that tonight.
Nietzsche is one of those hardline Brexiteers.
Polls will struggle because they've not had it before.
Yeah, we're seeing a trickle of the sort of Scottish seats come in, and we're seeing Labour taking seats here and here. What we're not showing is just how big some of these results are, and they're bigger than expected. So we've seen that Falkirk has gone to the Labour Party. The Labour is coming from third there. Right. It was the safest seat. That's the SNP's safest seat in Scotland coming into this campaign. Wow. They had a 15,000 majority. They got over 52.5% of the vote last time, and that's fallen. In East Renfrewshire, again, Labour's coming from third. They've gone from under 7,000 votes to 22,000 votes. Yeah. There, that's a 31.3% increase. It's enormous, 31 points that's gone up. So that exit poll that we saw where the SNP were down from 48 seats to 38, they're losing 38 down to 10. God, it's getting late, isn't it? They're losing 38 seats. That could be optimistic, and there are some of the people that are running the exit polls that have now revised down that figure. Really? So it might be an even worse night. Okay. Now, I know that I always bang on about Scotland, but they were not just, the biggest party
It's
in
not a crime
Scotland. This was also the third biggest party in the United Kingdom. They had a national UK platform as well. This is a big change of the night.
Basildon and Billericay, let's just look at that. We'll come back to you in just a second. Basildon and Billericay. After a recount.
20 votes in it, I heard.
Yeah.
Did you say?
I've got...
This is Richard Holden, the chair.
This is a declaration of result of poll for the election of a Member of Parliament for Basildon and Billericay constituency. I, Paula Deary, being the acting returning officer at the above election, do hereby give notice that the number of votes recorded for each candidate at the said election is as follows. Bateman Christopher David, British Democrats, 373. Connolly Stephen, Reform UK, 11,354. Goshawk Stewart, The Green Party, 2,123. Harrison Alexander James, Labour Party, 12,885.
Got it.
No.
Holden Richard John, the Conservative Party candidate, 12,905.
Oh, it looks as though he's just squeaked in. Just squeaked in by 20 votes. I saw you whistle through your teeth there, Brandon Lewis.
In a seat like that, that's far too close for comfort.
Yeah.
But you're the chairman of the party, it is.
Yeah.
You still have a chairman.
Yeah. I mean, look, every seat is going to make a difference in terms of the party's ability to really be able to move forward. But when in a seat like that, it needs a recount, and it's that close, that's an indication of just how difficult a night this is for us. There's no getting away from that.
And
also, can I just say...
20-odd votes there. We're hearing as well that it's going to be incredibly close in Godalming and Ash.
Yeah, I've just...
Have you got I've
just got a Lib Dem source has just told me that it's too close to call, and they think there are 100 votes in it.
Okay, here's Richard Tice's... Guys, bear with me. Richard Tice.
All illegal immigrants, 518. Forbert Alexandra, Labour Party, 7,629. Gilbert Michael William, Blue Revolution for People, Not Parties, 397. Lloyd Richard Gordon, Liberal Democrats, 1,375. Moore Christopher Michael, The Green Party, 1,506. Tice Richard, Reform UK, 15,520. Warman Matthew Robert, the Conservative Party candidate, 13,510.
Richard Tice is the third Reform candidate that will be returned to the House of Commons, 15,520. Into second place is the Conservatives. Reform are going to have to be a party that whoever is the next leader of the Conservatives will need to take seriously.
Yes, well, one of the things we've seen in those early results this evening is even where they're not winning, in what was called the Red Wall, they're coming second and pushing us into third. And as I say, my own constituency, they've effectively pushed us into third and won the seat. So that this is why this is going to be a real challenge for the Conservative Party in terms of how it balances out and works through what the reform.
Just reading Niall's comment here, Neil's comment, sorry. Big wake-up call for the SNP. Amazing how people quickly forget how bad New Labour were all the lives. What does the movement? Where does the movement go now? Yeah, there is. Mary Black was interviewed a few days, about a week ago, I think it was, where she mentioned that, look, if Labour win and they start imposing austerity, also in Scotland, and Labour in Scotland go along with that and don't resist it, then it's actually going to usher in a moment of a period where people go, wait a minute, we didn't expect this, we didn't vote for this, and they may switch back to the SNP, because if there are certain policies being put through by the Labour Party that are not popular in Scotland, then they'll be rejected at the following election or when there are by-elections. That's how these things work. So if Labour want to hold on to seats once again, it's like the rest of England, the rest of the UK. In England, if they want to hold on to seats, they need to do something for constituents. If they're seen not to do anything for constituents, then they're going to lose that support. I think a lot of the support Labour MPs or Labour is getting in Scotland is riding the coattails of Keir Starmer, of course. Movement
and immigration, yet Great Yarmouth's got one of the lowest levels of immigration in the country. That dynamic is interesting and is something that is quite challenging for people.
Brandon, have you partly also, it seems to me, when you keep saying wait for the night to play out, wait to see what happens in some of the Lib Dem Conservative battlegrounds, is that because you're worried that your party are going to look at this and decide that the solution is to tap to the right and try and become...
I think Tursten Bell won his seat. I think he did.
You think that they should do?
Yeah, look, I think I'm on the right of centre, certainly economically. But I think we have got to be personally very wary of chasing the reform vote. I actually think it is more important to challenge it, but also remember what got us into power in the first place in 2010,
so is there a
15
coming now for the kind of soul of what's left of the Tory party? Because you either go in that direction with reform, and then what becomes is that what's looming now?
Well, I think the party's got to say, is it a party that is, and I think the UK is relatively socially quite liberal actually, but are we a party that believes in the free market, in capitalism, good capitalism, and the free market, and are we going to make the case for that, or are we going to just go chasing and debating one topic?
Have you got enough allies in that, though?
Can I just interrupt you to say that Rishi Sunak's just arrived at his count in North Allerton. He will be looking at these results as they are coming in. He will have seen the exit poll, and he probably, if he was a drinker, would have been crying in his beer. What, if you were still chairman, what would you be saying to him tonight?
Well, I've not served in Rishi's.
So, guys, I have to go to bed soon. My eyes are starting to close, so I'm going to wait until Rishi Sunak's results are announced, and then I'll have to cut it off at that. But I'll be back tomorrow morning to cover these things, or at least to follow them.
Even tonight, some of the stuff coming out from our party has been about negative campaigning about what Labour are going to do. When it's clear Labour have won. We're not fighting the 2028 election yet.
I'm asking you what you would say to him.
I would say to him, look, he's a Prime Minister, he's made it, and look, I don't think I need to say this to Rishi Sunak. I think Rishi is somebody who will want to own this, he will reflect and recognise that as the leader of our party.
The best thing he could do is fall on his sword tonight, surely.
Well,
I think he'll be
doing.
If I was a betting man, I'd say he'll hold on to the seat.
He will be doing that tomorrow morning.
But I think he'll hold on to
go to the palace, and
if he loses,
that decision's made. The exit poll makes that
really,
quite clear.
Really bad for the
I don't think he will shirk responsibility. I don't think he's the type of person who shirk responsibility for where we are and what we've done. He's the leader. He knows that. He's an intelligent man. I don't have any qualms about him.
Not intelligent enough not to wait to call the election.
Well, there's a difference between political decision making and being a smart person who has, he does what he genuinely thinks is right for the country. And I don't think for 1 minute he will shirk responsibility as the leader for the decisions he's made.
But Brandon, the early election call designed to catch reform on the hop that badly backlashed, it's going to go down, isn't it, as one of the greatest miscalculations in electoral history. I mean, what a disaster.
To call an election and try and catch people up when your own party has about 200 seats unselected. I can't explain that. I do not understand
without the infrastructure.
Let's bring in Anna, should we? Let's bring in Anna.
It will go down as the worst campaign in history, I think.
Jenrick's held.
Yes, I can hear you all talking. Kay, thanks very much indeed. Rishi Sunak's gone into a private room. We're told he will be extremely brief. Obviously, he's waiting to hear his own result. Some earlier polling suggested he could be in trouble here. What we're hearing on the ground that he is not. But here we are. We're looking at a history-making Prime Minister, proudly the first British Asian, the first Hindu Prime Minister that the UK has ever seen. And now looks like he's history-making for all the wrong reasons. We know the Conservatives were trying to edge towards 165 seats. That John Major delivered in that crashing defeat in 1997. How close will they get on the night? It's a very difficult night. We've seen the heads rolling. You've listed them throughout the evening. Gillian Keegan.
Yeah, look, some of the comments are, people are saying here that Rishi Sunak will go anyway. Yeah, but look, if he wins the seat, he'll hang on for a few days, then he'll resign because, it was an absolute disaster. If he loses the seat, he'll be gone straight away. He's gone either way. So it's the difference between now or a few days.
Tough night here for the Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak. Holed up in a private room right now. We were expecting that anyway for security reasons. But let me bring in Darren McCaffrey here. And the great debate that we've been hearing from people like Charles Walker, Brandon Lewis there, the strategic error of calling this election 6 months earlier than he had to. Is this defeat his fault?
Well, this is going to be the big argument. There's going to be...
It is, well, it's not so much his fault. He took over and he made a lot of mistakes. Yoni, thank you so much for that super chat. My suggestion, 2 years of explaining different versions of proportional representation to the public and then have a referendum with multiple choices, majority win, or a second round between the two tops. Yeah, I think that's a good idea. It needs to be informed. The public need to be informed. They need to be told exactly what it's about. Otherwise, somebody else sets the narrative.
Waiting for Penny Mordaunt to hear her declaration. It is a close one.
This has seen
plenty. I think 4 cabinet secretaries losing their positions.
She's a potential leader, so if she holds on to her seat, she'll likely be a candidate
splendidly during the coronation. Exactly. There's a theme developing here. There she is on the stage. You're running out of people who could lead the party, Brandon Lewis.
Well, I mean, there'll be plenty of MPs who will be looking at their opportunities and whether they think they're the right person, and that's a discussion the party's going to have in the weeks ahead. I think we're going to need to have a leader in place relatively quickly to establish things, but we've got to get that balance right about having a proper debate and a proper discussion and having some space to do that over the next few weeks. But that's the kind of discussion that people will start having privately, if not in the next. Well, some of them will have already been having it while I've been sitting here on this stage.
Stand up and
absolutely right. And look, over a period of time, I think one of the things we're seeing in these results tonight is a reflection. If you look at, as I come back to what I said before, what we're losing to Liberal Democrats, we're losing to Reform. That means it's not one ideology or another. It's a vote against us, and not least of all because we have spent far too much time in the last few years arguing amongst and with ourselves about who's leading us, what we're doing on various issues. And one of the things that's been consistent, and I remember making this point when I was chairman, for our party is our polling has never hit as hard as it is when we're fighting ourselves. And we're falling into that trap too often.
Simon Clarke has lost Middlesbrough South and East Cleveland by 214 votes. And he got the Reform candidate to stand down in that seat. He'll be absolutely devastated.
Yeah, he will. And he's a very, very good man who's, I'm a big fan of Simon, not least because he was very pro getting house building going in a positive way, which is something we should be doing for young people. So he'll be a real loss.
I'm not sure who gasped, but it was about
Rishi
Simon Clarke losing
arriving at his count, as we said, as we bring you news that the Armed Forces Minister Leo Doherty has lost his seat. And Therese Coffey has lost.
Therese Coffey
has lost to the Greens. Former Deputy Prime Minister.
There was a poll earlier in the week that did show that seat was very tight, but that it was going to let potentially Labour in.
Are you surprised by that?
That's not a seat Green. I was with Greens on Sunday on TV. They were not expecting to win that seat.
Therese Coffey has lost.
Here we go, guys.
Right.
Simon James Dodd, Liberal Democrat, 3,031. Amanda Louise Martin, Labour Party, 14,495.
She held on to the seat.
Penelope Mary Mordaunt, commonly known as Penny Mordaunt, the Conservative Party candidate, 13,715.
Lost her seat as well. Looks to the Labour Party, waiting for the Reform results to come in, but they're falling thick and fast now, Brandon Lewis. Do you want to go and lie in a darkened room?
Who will lead this party?
I felt like that for a fair few hours now.
Gone,
but I mean, and again, very close. It'll be interesting to see what the reform vote result is there. But we've lost a very, very good parliamentary performer in Penny as well.
Brandon, do you think if he hadn't left DD early, that a military seat like that, she would have got that extra 800 votes?
Well, she blamed him, didn't she?
I mean, because that is a catastrophic thing to do in a military seat, isn't it?
Lost after all.
Again, rather like calling the election when he did, like going out in the rain, I cannot explain why you go to DD early, leave it early, and then to come back for
Johnny
the best way in the world, an interview.
Can I just say, sorry, coming quick and thick and fast, Johnny Mercer's lost his seat.
Yeah.
Johnny
Again,
Mercer has
a
lost
military
his seat.
seat,
That's wonderful news.
Plymouth, Portsmouth, big old naval
was
seats
expected. He wasn't
with
doing very well.
huge veteran communities in there. And what do? You upset the entire military community. I mean,
and to be fair, Labour were very smart. Labour also, had a military person up against Johnny, so balance that the military.
You can call
issue
election timing wrong, but the leaving D-Day thing was just like any politician knows. I mean, what would enter someone's head to do?
And particularly at a time where the country is effectively on a war footing, if you like, with the situation in Ukraine, with what's going on in the Middle East. Our armed forces are every day putting
and even the
themselves at risk.
explanation annoyed me. Oh, well, I was with the British veterans, but the international... The whole point was you should be there for...
Also, the entire fortnight, the first fortnight of the Tory campaign was based on security and defence and the idea that Keir Starmer was going to be a danger, etc., etc. It was part of that negative campaign. This will go up there. It'll be worse than the donkey jacket that Michael Foot wore at the Cenotaph. It'll be worse than that bigoted woman. This will go into political folklore as the biggest gaffe of any election
Standing
campaign
in the
ever.
rain was the high
I want
point.
to make the most of Brandon while he's still with us to tell you that as former Northern Ireland Secretary, Sinn Féin set to win the most Northern Ireland seats at Westminster for the first time.
Yeah, well, I mean, we've seen Sinn Féin's vote growing in Northern Ireland through Stormont elections as well. And I think in Northern Ireland, the DUP made a big error by stepping away from Stormont in the first place, taking so long to go back, because the people in Northern Ireland were smart enough to know that the situation at Stormont had no reflection or involvement with what was going on with the Brexit debate and the agreement with the withdrawal agreement. It was a separate issue. And I think people in Northern Ireland will not forgive the DUP for leaving Northern Ireland without government, for their mind, for no good reason.
Because
really.
the DUP are stupid.
And I think
the stupidest party.
Well, yeah, I mean, look, my job, I do business with all the parties in Northern Ireland.
It's Theresa May.
Oh, yeah. But as I say, at that point, Northern Ireland Stormont wasn't sitting because of Sinn Féin, but it came back. When it came back and when the DUP left, they left over an issue that was not a Stormont issue. And the people of Northern Ireland felt strongly about that. It was very clear at the time. You could see it on the streets. People were open about that. They felt that the DUP wasn't moving forward with some progressive issues. I made sure we had access to abortion support for women in Northern Ireland. DUP fought against that. Young people in the industry couldn't understand it, and I think they're suffering from that. What will be interesting tonight as well is to see how the Alliance Party do. The Alliance Party have been growing in strength in Northern Ireland, which is again a reflection of people from both Catholic and Republican and Protestant unionist backgrounds not wanting to vote based on sectarianism, but voting for something else.
And that's a strength. Donaldson's seat already.
They take the Wagon
and that,
Valley.
in a way, democratically is an interesting move for Northern Ireland.
The bellwether one. Yeah.
But Brendan, you guys are coming in advancing a whole series of tactical reasons.
Let's hear from Penny Mordaunt. You need to make your questions short.
To those disappointed at the result tonight, let me cheer you up. Democracy is never wrong. I want to add my thanks to all those who have facilitated this election, the count, the police, those who man polling stations, the electoral team at Portsmouth City Council, and also to all candidates who've run in North and South, and in particular my running mate in the South, Sina Biddle. Congratulations, Amanda. You have my assurance that I and my team will do everything we can to assist you in setting up your office and having a smooth transfer of our casework so that the people of Portsmouth have a good service throughout that period. Amanda, you will know that you are now working for...
Okay, whatever. Can't wait for Count Binface. Yeah, look, we're going to wait for Count Binface. We're going to wait for Rishi Sunak. That's the big fish of the night. The first Sea Lord. What's going on in Wales? We need We need Tom Jones. Yes. Penny Mordaunt won't be missed. Nobody cares. Bye. No, nobody cares. You know, she probably had very high ambitions. She was like, okay, I almost became Prime Minister. I almost became leader of the Conservative Party. But, you know, at least if I hold on to my seat, then I'll be able to be leader of the Conservative Party. But I think the Tories are going in the opposite direction of where she wanted to go. I think the Tories are going to head in the direction of, you know, Reform UK. They're either going to bring Farage aboard, or you're going to see some Tories defect to Reform to boost their numbers.
Healthcare, or whether the responsibility you shoulder will be recognised and rewarded. That fear steals the future, and it only makes the present matter.
You know, a big problem now for me is Fool of the Week. Where am I going to find my Fools of the Week?
Renewal as a party and a country will not be achieved by us talking to an ever smaller slice of ourselves, but by being guided by the people of this country. And if we want again to be the natural party of government, then our values must be the people's. I've lost many good colleagues tonight, but I hope that, like me, they intend to carry on serving their communities with even stronger heart. Our country needs all of us. And finally, I want to thank my campaigners, my team here in Portsmouth, led by Rob New, my parliamentary team, those who supported me, including other political parties, particularly the independent group under George Madgwick, but also the thousands of activists across the country who, in the darkest of times, not of their making, fought like hell for what they believed in and a better future. I've never been prouder of you all.
Okay, so let's just pause for a moment to reflect on where we are.
Can I just say, typically gracious and classy from Penny then?
Yes,
that's how you do a concession speech.
Yes, you can, but I want to tell our viewers just tuning our way that in 1997 there were 7 cabinet ministers that lost their position.
Ian Paisley has lost his seat. Yay, that's wonderful news. Ian Paisley Jr., maybe he's off to, was it the Cayman Islands? No, where was it? Sri Lanka? Was that where he was?
Most are gone, and there's still more to come, potentially. Rishi Sunak has arrived at his count. He is the Prime Minister for now. He won't even be, I'm guessing, the leader of his party by tomorrow. We'll have to wait and see. Brandon Lewis staying with us until 6 o'clock. Leader of his party, leader of the SNP, is joining us now. Perhaps a reluctant leader of the SNP, some might suggest. It's not looking that great for you tonight, is it?
Not at all. It's been a very tough night for us, Kay, and a lot of my colleagues, I'm afraid, are going to lose their seats, and I'm very sorry about that. We've had a really difficult and damaging result, and we will have to think long and hard about the implications of the results in Scotland tonight.
I refer to my honourable friend here who's been monitoring what's been happening up in Scotland very closely indeed, country very close to her heart. Thoughts?
So John, you've been in the game even longer than I have. Quite often in Scotland there's a kind of almost bonus for being in the top 2. I think some of the results that I've been seeing coming in Stirling and Strathallan, in Aberdeen, in Ayrshire North and Arran, in East Renfrewshire, we're seeing Labour vaulting over both of our parties and coming from sort of in the low single thousands into 20,000 plus in some cases. It looks like the exit poll for Scotland may be underestimating the success of Labour in Scotland and overestimating perhaps both of our parties' tallies. Would you think that's fair?
Well, certainly from what I've seen so far, the results are very difficult, and I think the exit poll was tough enough news when it came out at 10 o'clock. I suspect we may not reach that exit poll level, but there's a lot of ground still to be covered tonight. But regardless of where we end up, this is a very difficult night for the Scottish National Party, and we need to look at this carefully, talk, listen carefully to what the public are saying to us, engage with the public, and begin the rebuilding of trust with the public in Scotland, which is the absolute foundation of any political success.
So I think the problem for the SNP is the idea that a lot of the support switched from the Conservatives to Labour, and that it was a case of riding on Keir Starmer's coattails. So people believed, well, he's going to change things. So they voted for that.
That winning a majority of seats in this election would be a mandate for another independence referendum. That's clearly not going to happen. I know we've still got a lot of seats to come in, but it's not going to happen. Do you regret keeping that as your party's position when you came in as leader?
Does this delay?
No, because there's got to be a means of addressing the democratic wishes of the people of Scotland, which in 2021 elected a Scottish Parliament with a majority that wanted there to be a referendum on independence and a majority that was...
The question there, could the SNP come back if Labour in Scotland don't change things? Yeah, I think they will, because once again, there isn't a Reform UK in Scotland. The Liberal Democrats are not going to be a real force in Scotland. The alternative to Labour is, of course, the SNP. So the onus will be on Labour in Scotland to deliver stuff, to improve things. But if they don't, then people will be like, well, what the hell did we vote Labour for? Then we're going to switch back to the SNP. Because if they start imposing austerity and it's not popular in Scotland, then they'll be voted out. Sorry.
Look at how best we take that forward.
OK. We're going to have to leave it there. Thank you very much indeed for staying behind for us when they're clearing up all around you. We do appreciate it, John Swinney. Thank you. Just to clarify, Brandon Lewis, when we were saying that Therese Coffey had lost to the Greens, she's actually lost to Labour. But she did
that makes more sense, as I was saying, yes.
Exactly that.
I was going to say John Swinney was putting a brave face on it, but I don't think he was. He looked devastated, didn't he, in that interview just now?
He only became leader for the second time. A few weeks before, pretty reluctantly, and he said just a year before that it was time for him to take a step back when Nicola Sturgeon had gone and he was the deputy leader. He was going to take a step back and he wouldn't be back in the front line at all. When Humza Yousaf fell, he was the kind of natural steady the ship, and in terms of how his campaign had gone, actually he probably did steady the ship. I think it could have been...
Could Labour apply devolution max for Scotland? They could, but I don't see them doing that because there's no need, because Labour in Scotland are not going to demand that.
Campaign.
Are they paying a price for doing too much on independence and not enough on delivering on public service?
Well, how it's always worked in the past is that the caravan, so the number of people that support independence has been bigger than the number of people that support the SNP as a party. And by making independence the biggest issue, which they've always tried to do, they've managed to gather up. They have a bigger tent, and it's worked as a vehicle for them. And the pro-UK vote is split three ways between Labour, Lib Dems and the Conservatives. What has happened, he was talking about there, was the proportion of people supporting independence and the union hasn't changed that much. I would say that an 11-point win in a binary referendum, we have since found out is actually quite a big result, thanks very much. But what has happened is that the importance isn't there. So the reason that it drives people out to vote, it's gone down the list of priorities from being in the top three to now being below cost of living, below NHS, below public services, below local councils. And that's made a huge difference. That prism of independence being the only thing that decided your vote, that's gone. But for a while, for 2015, 2017, 2019, that was a really big part of what decided people's votes.
And I just think there's an interesting dynamic that you can see in Northern Ireland as well. I think the reason Sinn Féin have been doing well is they do not base their campaigns on their constitutional argument in Northern Ireland. Their campaigns are on local issues, providing housing, the issues people want to care about. Yeah. It's been really interesting over the last couple of years to watch how Sinn Féin have dropped back. They still want, obviously, a united Ireland, but it's not the forefront of their campaign. It's almost conspicuous by its absence.
But it's going to happen anyway. There isn't a force driving like Sinn Féin. I think he's comparing apples and oranges here because the situation in Northern Ireland is very different. You know, you have Sinn Féin in the Republic of Ireland as well. So it's a very bad comparison here because you need you need someone to fight for independence in Scotland, while in Ireland, on the island of Ireland, there isn't the same. It's almost, you just sit around and it'll eventually happen. But you also have, you know, the Good Friday Agreement, and you have the Irish government working towards it as well.
I mean, are you furious with him?
I would expect he'll be furious with himself as well. He should be. He is the leader. And ultimately, the decisions over the last couple of years, if you're the leader, if you're the Prime Minister, you have to own that. And look, I think he will. I think he's the type of person who will respect that. But yeah, absolutely. If you're the Prime Minister, you're the leader of the party, you set the tone, you set the policies, you make the decision on when to go. He has to own that reality.
Is he like the worst politician you've ever worked with?
Well, there's some competition for that.
All right, but what I mean is, as a leader...
To be fair, we've all got culpability. Over the last 14 years, I spent 10 years of that in government, 5.5 in cabinet. I'm sure some of the decisions I made will be decisions people, will have played into all of this. We've all got some responsibility for this, but ultimately, if you're the leader of the party who calls an election, as Theresa May did in 2017, you have to own that.
I don't think he's the worst politician.
I'll come back to you in just a second. Here comes Ed.
Kind of like unscientific assessment for tonight, this morning, which is this, it's just weird. A lot of these numbers are just unusual. We were kind of discussing this backstage, and this is just kind of one of the oddest elections in terms of the results. I mean, if you just look at the bottom of your screen, you'll see part of the answer, part of the explanation for that. Look at that change in the share for Labour, up by 1%. There it is now, up by 1%, and yet they are on course for an enormous, whooping majority. Look at the Lib Dems basically not changing at all in terms of the share of the vote, and yet they are about to kind of triple, quadruple potentially the number of MPs, the SNP collapsing as well. And part of the explanation for this perhaps is the fact that, you know, this existing system as we know it is starting to fracture. But one thing I did want to talk about is Stoke-on-Trent North. If we can look at Stoke-on-Trent North, there we are. OK, so Jonathan Gullis just defeated in Stoke-on-Trent. What's interesting about this, look, Labour Party in there. OK, so this was a really strong Brexit voting area, and yet the Tories are losing in it. OK, and this brings me on to this trend that we're going to show you. What we're going to do is we're going to take all of these hexes. So this is all of the constituencies in the UK. There's Stoke-on-Trent North. And we're arranging them by the Brexit vote, OK? So those who voted, constituencies where the Remain vote was the most, are over here. And no surprise, you can see the Green Party there. You can see a lot of Labour, a lot of Lib Dems there. These are Remain areas. And then as you move here, this is areas which voted for Leave. And you can see we're seeing more blue here. But what's perhaps most striking is a lot of this was blue at the last election, and it's turning back red. So there you have a lot of the red wall story, and there is Stoke-on-Trent North. It is this Brexit reversion, you know, areas that were strongly in favour of Brexit, which previously went across to the Conservative Party, are now going back towards the Labour Party, although beneath the surface, you look at what's going on there, and you see that the Reform Party is eating into it. So look at this, Great Yarmouth. One of these is Great Yarmouth, OK? We'll bring it up here, and then you can see that really strong Leave vote in Great Yarmouth. And you can see that that has actually been borne out in the results here. So it is really interesting just to see that shift, and that you get a sense of another unusual facet of this election, OK? So you might be kind of tempted to ask, well, does this still mean that the Conservative Party are struggling in terms of their share of the vote right now? Well, the answer is very much yes. This is showing you, from results so far, the Conservative share of the vote at this election compared with basically all of history, OK? So 22% so far, share of the vote for the Conservative Party. Have they ever seen anything like this in the 70s, in the 60s, the 50s, the 1920s, back into the 19th century, the 1850s? We've never seen an election where the Conservative share of the vote has been as low as it is currently. OK, and we're still counting right now. But so far, this is the story. Complete collapse in support for the Conservative Party here. But it's not like you're seeing an enormous increase in Labour support in terms of the share of the vote. It's not like you're seeing an enormous increase in terms of Lib Dem share in the vote. Perhaps, you know, the best overarching explanation for this is that the existing two-party system, as we know it, well, it's fracturing here, and it's fracturing for all of the parties, and what's left is a slightly chaotic result, which allows Labour, we'll finish by looking at this map, allows Labour to completely change the complexion of the political geography in this country.
And see, the problem with all of this is that if proportional representation is not brought in, this could easily flip to another colour at the next election.
But, I mean, some of these numbers, this is totally unprecedented, this collapse in Conservative support, and those, you know, those bars are something that, as you were hearing from Brandon Lewis, you know, the party's going to spend a long time thinking about.
Yeah. Some stuff that's been coming in, some results coming in while you've been chatting. Ed Miliband has held his seat. Finchley has been, which of course was Margaret Thatcher's old seat, that has gone red to late West Streeting.
But really interesting, I think that is the highest number of Jewish population in Finchley, and so is that the flip side of the Gaza story? So losing in places like Leicester.
Trevor wants to talk about that. Trevor wants to talk about that.
I think there's something very interesting which we're not used to here, where actually identity is becoming a big deal. Finchley is the most Jewish constituency in the country. It's now returned to Labour, and that probably is a comment on the way that Keir Starmer has dealt with the anti-Semitism question within Labour. But I think West Streeting's constituency is even more interesting. About a third of the voters there are Muslims, and it looks like he's just scraped home, which is astonishing.
What did you say, a couple of hundred votes there? 500. 500
votes. And it's worth saying that Ilford North is only the 21st most Muslim seat in the country. We haven't yet seen what's coming in from Birmingham.
Yeah, can I just say as well on the Finchley, which was the Finchley and Golders Green seat back in the day, the reason that it's a new Conservative candidate is because Mike Freer stood down. He'd been the MP there for a while. And one of the reasons that he stood down was the amount of abuse he'd had, the amount of attacks on his office, the amount of anti-Semitic things that were written about him, the pressure and the threats to his family. So this idea of personal and cultural identity spilling over into not just how you exercise your politics at the ballot box, but how you exercise your politics throughout your actions, and sometimes in direct action, is something that's becoming more and more prevalent. And I think it's something that we're going to have to watch as we go forward and find a way in which we can
just to be
explain to people.
Just to be precise, by the way, Mike Freer is not actually Jewish.
No, he's not, but he's been a huge...
The idea that Thatcher's seat flipped to the Labour Party is amazing.
Partner, and on his family and on his staff and the attacks on his office. There was a fire attack on his office. It was really quite a bad one. So I think these are one of, you know, we've had a couple of MPs that have been murdered in the last 10 years. You know, we really have to look at how heightened the political debate gets in this country. And I take all of the views that people have spoken about people feeling disconnected from their politicians.
Darren Jones has kept his
very
seat
hard to
in
stay
Bristol.
connected when you don't feel safe.
Darren Jones has kept his seat in Bristol. Andrew Mitchell, he of Plebgate and Deputy Foreign Secretary, he has also kept his seat in the Midlands. I need to go to Anna, who's standing by for us. In the Prime Minister's constituency, there's not a lot I'll say it again, it's late. Not a lot of love lost for the Prime Minister from his former, one of his former cabinet ministers, it has to be said, Brandon Lewis, who thinks he'll be gone by the morning.
Yeah, I was listening all about that. Here in Northallerton Kay, there is that hushed tone of anticipation now. because we're waiting for the Prime Minister to face the public for the first time, having delivered what looks like a historic defeat, when only 5 years ago Boris Johnson gave the Conservative Party their third biggest ever seat tally since World War II. The Conservatives have never fallen below 30% share of the national vote. Now it looks like they have. Plenty of questions for the Prime Minister. For example, will he, as you suggested earlier, or you put it earlier, throw in the towel tonight? And if he doesn't, how will he phrase his speech this evening, acknowledging the losses some of his closest colleagues have had? Will he travel to London and make a speech outside Downing Street? Will he stay on as Conservative leader as that tussle begins to try to work out who will lead this perhaps now unruly party? Plenty of questions. So let me bring in Darren.
Good morning, everyone.
There we go. Sounds like we're getting the returning officer. Should we just have a listen?
Please have your attention. All the counting teams for the Richmond and Northallerton constituency have now been completed and all the votes counted. The control tables have undertaken their checks, and we are now in a position to share the provisional results, which, as a part of the process, can only be done with candidates and their election agents. So this will be done in a private area towards the back of the room. So can I ask all the candidates follow me when I leave this stage? We'll go down the centre of this room into that private area. I repeat, only candidates and their appointed election agents, not counting agents or any other guests. Please can you follow me now so we can share the provisional results. Thank you.
I don't know what that's all about.
So we wait to see Rishi Sunak then for the first time. We know he's been in a private room here with his wife. I was just going to bring in Darren McCaffrey, who's been following the Prime Minister throughout this. The other question I was going to pose is, does he stay in this seat?
Well, so my expectation is that the Prime Minister is obviously going to stay for the current result. He's just about to emerge from the other side of this room, where he's going to find out here he is indeed. This is the Prime Minister with his wife. Walking to the back of the room, he will be told, Anna, in the next minute or so that he remains the MP for Richmond and Northallerton here. He's going to win this seat, we think, relatively comfortably. But he will then take that stage. Fascinating that you've put this question of how is he going to frame his speech tonight. But my expectation is he is going to leave here immediately. He's going to fly down to London, and that later on this morning he will be resigning as Prime Minister. But the likelihood is he will stay on as Conservative leader.
You've been
Probably
with him throughout the 6 weeks. We heard him say earlier this week that he takes full responsibility for the results. And yet, in the back of his mind, will he look at what Liz Truss did to the Conservative Party, what Boris Johnson did to the Conservative Party, or on this watch, will he blame himself?
I think he will take responsibility publicly, but he knows, as he said to us earlier on this week, that frankly he wasn't dealt 4 aces, a recognition that he was dealt effectively a bad hand by some of his successors. I think the big question for the Prime Minister tonight, and we've heard this throughout the campaign, are very, very angry Conservative activists and now former MPs who frankly think that he should not have called this campaign when he did. He called it too early, and second of all, he ran the campaign very badly. Yes, there were the missteps around D-Day, for example, on Sky Television, and yes, there was the Gamblegate, but in the end they felt that the Prime Minister should be bolder, should have had a more radical plan for Britain, should have been more right-wing, if you like. And it's also fascinating listening to guests like Brandon Lewis, listening to Penny Mordaunt's speech and Robert Buckland tonight. There are many in the party who are now concerned about where the Conservatives go next.
Did Rishi do anything right in the campaign? No, nothing at all. It's been a disaster from the very beginning. From the very beginning, standing out in the rain instead of actually having somebody take him an umbrella.
Finding out tonight that he will remain as an MP, that battle is already begun. It has already begun. By the way, what I would say is he is committed, he has said repeatedly throughout this campaign that he will remain an MP for the next 5 years. I'm not entirely convinced he will.
Jeremy Hunt's declaration. Here we go.
This should be good.
While we wait for that, let me tell you that... let me just say, while we're waiting for the result, I can tell you that Michelle Donnellan Science Minister, former Health Secretary, Culture Secretary. She has also lost. So that's a record.
They're breaking all the records tonight,
tell us what the record is.
Well, it was 7 in 97, so that's 8 and counting, and we're only just over halfway through cabinet ministers who have lost their seats. It also looks like a record low in seats, and at the moment it could be a record low vote share as well. I mean, it is. This will go down as the biggest electoral miscalculation ever in terms of the timing of when he called this. He took the gamble, and he has failed.
But I think he was forced
in an
into
astonishing fashion.
The party were going to pull the plug if he didn't.
The largest number of seats, the way things are going at the moment. There's only been 12 cabinet ministers who have lost their seats since 1974. 10 in one election here, and we're about to hear from the Prime Minister's seat and also from the Chancellor. Jeremy Hunt's declaration.
Being the acting returning officer, do hereby give notice that the number of votes recorded for each candidate for the Godalming and Ash constituency is as follows. Drage, Graham Richard, Reform UK, 4,815.
Good morning,
Follows
everybody.
Paul David,
get your attention.
Liberal Democrats,
I, Barry
22,402.
Can't hear.
Hunt, Jeremy Richard Strensham, commonly known as Jeremy Hunt, the Conservative Party, 23,293.
Held on to his seat. Jeremy Hunt has held on to his seat. 23, but he's held on to his seat. Hold that thought.
I was hoping for a Portillo moment there.
22.
Anne Dickens, Workers' Party of Britain, 90. Kevin Foster, the Green Party, 2,058. Rio Sebastian Justin Goldhammer, commonly known as Rio Goldhammer, Yorkshire Party, 132. Jonathan David Harvey, commonly known as Count Binface Party, 308. Graham Nichols, commonly known as Sir Archibald Stanton, the official monster raving loony party, 99. Nicholas Omilana, commonly known as Nico Omilana, 160. Brian Neil Richmond, Independent, 222. Rishi Sunak, Conservative Party, 23,059. Lee Martin Taylor, Reform UK, 7,142. Thomas James Wilson, commonly known as Tom Wilson, Labour Party, 10,874. I hereby declare that Rishi Sunak is duly elected. Congratulations, and we address the stand.
So the Prime Minister and the Chancellor both keeping their seats.
That's a disappointment.
Good morning. Could I start by thanking the returning officer and all the team who've been working here at the count and at the polling stations today. You make our democracy possible. I'd also like to thank the police who have ensured that we can conduct this ballot here in North Yorkshire, but also across the country in safety. On this difficult night, I'd like to express my gratitude to the people of the Richmond and North Allerton constituency for your continued support. Since I moved here a decade ago, you have made me and my family feel so at home, and I look forward to continuing to serve as your member of Parliament. It is an enormous privilege. I'm grateful to my agent and constituency team, and I congratulate my opponents here on the energetic and very good-natured campaigns that they have run. The Labour Party has won this general election, and I have called Sir Keir Starmer to congratulate him on his victory. Today, power will change hands in a peaceful and orderly manner, with goodwill on all sides. That is something that should give us all confidence in our country's stability and future. The British people have delivered a sobering verdict tonight. There is much to learn and reflect on, and I take responsibility for the loss. To the many good, hard-working Conservative candidates who lost tonight, despite their tireless efforts, their local records of delivery, and their dedication to their communities, I am sorry. I will now head down to London, where I will say more about tonight's result before I leave the job of Prime Minister, to which I have given my all. I will then return here, to my family's home, and I look forward to spending more time with you all in the weeks, months, and years ahead. Thank you.
Okay, so that's it. He's going to go down. He's going to announce his departure, and the hell be done. So I thought he'd probably stay on until a new leader was found, but that doesn't seem to be the case. The robot is done. So guys, I'm going to actually have to stop it here because I think we've seen the big stories of tonight. There'll be probably more votes counted and more candidates winning and losing. But I think those are the big ones. It was a disappointment about Jeremy Hunt. I was hoping that Jeremy Hunt would have lost his seat, but that's not to be the case. The Tories are out. That's the main point here. And they're not going to be really doing anything for a long time because, it could be the case that they end up with 130 seats. 130 seats. They will be the official opposition, but now the next stage will, of course, be who will replace Rishi Sunak. And we have to see who's actually left. So I think, as I said before, it's probably going to go to the right. The Conservatives are going to lick their wounds, going to do a bit of navel gazing, and then probably come up with somebody like Suella Braverman or Kemi Badenoch as the next leader of the party. A sobering verdict indeed. You done effed up. Thanks so much for that, Yoni. Yes, if he could have saved his party some more seats by actually moving to the centre, by focusing on the cost of living, but instead, no. He went down the road of immigration, trying to chase Nigel Farage and reform. So guys, have a great night, whatever's left of it. I'll see you probably tomorrow. Might do a live stream tomorrow night, see how things go. But it's going to be an interesting few days going forward. So thanks so much to everyone who came on. Thanks so much for your super chat. Thanks for your support. And as I said, it's going to be an interesting few days. And we're going to see, a big question I have is, when is Parliament going to open again? Is it next Monday? Is it next week? Jacob Rees-Mogg is gone. Yay! That's great news. Thanks so much for that. So that's a good one. I'm going to have to do a lot of response videos to a lot of the stuff that's come out tonight. So take care, good night, and I'll see you very soon. Actually, I wanted to say thanks to the moderators for doing a wonderful job tonight by staying up late and keeping me company. Good night, guys.